It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, September 18th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. The Dan Caplis Law Center text line is also open, 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. We want you to be a part of the conversation. Coming up on the show today, Billy and I are going to continue our discussion about all things Pope Francis. Did Pope Francis say that there are multiple ways to God? Catholic popes say that? Or is that just a Catholic catechism? We're going to get into that in the 7 o'clock hour. And then, was Kamala Harris right when she said that there aren't people bringing their children to full term and then aborting them? What about Dr. Hearn here in Colorado and these late-term abortion, the late-term abortion operation he has up in Boulder? A number of pro-life groups have done phone calls to try to figure out what's really going on up in Boulder. And then Brad Yellin from United Hatzalah, this is a great organization in Israel that's doing rescue work there, is going to be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. Bill, did you hear about the pagers? Holy cow. One of the funniest tweets I saw in all that was Gen Z just learned about pagers yesterday. Because yep. Some of those guys got hurt, and then that one video in the hospital. So if you miss the details on it, essentially these pagers that all of the terrorists used to communicate were somehow laden with an explosive that they think Israel hasn't claimed responsibility for it, but they think Israel did. Yeah, right. And they triggered these the explosions of these pagers. So all these dudes are wearing them on their hips, wearing them in the backpacks, and then the videos are them like shopping in their pocket. Oh. Did you? It's like a spy novel. My kids were asking what pagers were. I explained it to them. The videos are wild. You get these guys that are just shopping. Some are like hanging out on the street corner, and then all of a sudden this small explosion. So this is an interesting thing to go down and explore. Edward Snowden tweeting that this was a Rubicon that's that. And should presidential candidates, Republicans running for House, Senate, any of those, be doing these types of debates on such progressive networks anymore? Is it worth it? We'd love to get your calls and thoughts on that. But first, let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Oh, good morning, guys. The Pagers was so 007, man. It was so incredible, all the video. I'm just like Billy. I went deep into that thing.
Yeah, that was so cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
And the part for me is it's, and I understand that I was suspending my humanity a little bit, that I was celebrating the idea these people were injured. But these are people that are involved in organizations that are trying to injure other people. And they're trying to bring about political change through violence. So I was able to go, I think it's okay that I laugh about this. I think I'm going to be fine with this.
It's the old biblical adage, live by the sword, die by the sword. Here are guys that are trying to kill Jews, innocent Jews in many cases. And oh no, I'm so sorry, your wiener's never going to work again.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Israel's like, you started, we'll finish it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much. 52 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 84 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a Colorado council member is now charged with shooting a 17-year-old in the face for trespassing. Brent Metz serves in the town of Mountain View in Jefferson County. Prosecutors say the two boys came to his lakeside home in Conifer last week to ask about taking a homecoming picture with a scenic background. That's when they claimed the 38-year-old pulled up next to the teens in a car, got out and fired one shot. The bullet went through the windshield and struck the boy, causing serious injuries. Metz remains out of jail on bond. Crews continue to fight a wildfire in Larimer County. As of last night, the blaze is estimated to be 128 acres, and several evacuation orders remain in effect. The wildfire began burning on Monday in the Crystal Lakes area. Investigators determined the fire originated on private property and was caused by humans. The FBI is investigating a suspicious package sent to the Colorado Secretary of State's office. It was intercepted at a mail facility Tuesday with the return address to the U.S. Traitor Elimination Army. Officials say it contained a white powder that turned out to be harmless. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold calls this unacceptable and says we cannot tolerate threats to election officials or public servants.
I'll call that unacceptable too.
Yes.
That's not right. You know, you can have all the frustrations in the world with a political opponent, particularly with Jenna Griswold and what she's done to the elections, but sending that type of stuff, threatening violence, threatening to harm people, come on, man.
Yeah, that's horrific.
That's not good.
Don't need that. Absolutely. In his first public appearance since the second attempted assassination of him, former President Trump took part in a town hall event in Michigan. He said that only consequential presidents get shot at, and went on to say that it is a dangerous business running for president. Florida is conducting its own investigation of the attempted assassination. And once again, who was this nut job working with? Who was tipping him off? Could it be a deep state individual, establishment jackwagon posing as a conservative? Stay tuned on that one. Hey, Peter Doocy exposing Karine Jean-Pierre again. Again. Here we go.
Since somebody.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, I'll play that later. Computer just froze up. It was incredible. KJP at it again. Israel apparently intercepted those pagers from Taiwan and that detonated in the pockets of thousands of Hezbollah terrorists before they reached Lebanon. According to the New York Times, Israel tampered with the devices that Hezbollah ordered. They reportedly placed 2 ounces of explosive material next to the battery in each pager. Then a switch was also embedded that could be triggered remotely to detonate the explosive. The Times reported also the Hezbollah fighters received a message at 3:30 Lebanon time that looked like it was coming from Hezbollah's leadership. When the message came through, there was a brief pause, presumably so the fighters would raise the pagers toward their face before they detonated. Over 2,800 people were injured and 9 people were killed. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. It's 50 in Centennial, 47 in Golden, and 52 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It's Hump Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunshine across the Denver metro, cooler, comfortable temps in the lower to mid-80s, cleared tonight, lows in the lower 50s. Mid-80s for Thursday and Friday, going to keep it dry as we round out the work week, lows in the lower to mid-50s. For the weekend, 70s on Saturday, rain showers developing, heavy rains possible through Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. New York Post reporting on this yesterday. ABC News' David Muir sees newscast ratings tank after his controversial debate moderating. ABC News' World News Tonight anchor David Muir may have driven away some viewers after the Disney-owned network irked conservatives during last week's presidential debate. Muir and co-moderator Lindsay Davis. There's no D in there. That's interesting. I didn't know that about her name. I've never seen a spelling of Lindsay without a D. Lindsay Davis fact-checked former President Donald Trump 5 times without ever correcting Vice President Kamala Harris, prompting a plethora of conservatives to suggest the debate wasn't fair. Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, as well as Focus on the Family, even called for a correction after Davis made an abortion claim during the debate, during one of the fact checks on Trump that the group said was 100% inaccurate. Muir's World News Tonight averaged 6.7 million viewers on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, 3 episodes following the debate, after averaging 7.6 million in 2024 leading up to the debate. The 12% drop in viewers for World News Tonight is more significant than slight declines over at CBS Evening News and NBC Nightly News saw when comparing the 3 episodes following ABC's debate to the year-to-date totals, although Muir's newscast remained number 1 for broadcast evening newscast. I know a lot of people, a lot of conservatives that said to me, I used to really trust David Muir and kind of liked him. He always seemed balanced, but they were very frustrated after the last debate. Do you think, Billy, I can't remember the last time I tuned into an evening news broadcast.
Given my schedule, I do somewhat regularly.
Do you tune them in?
Yeah, but normally it's background news while I'm doing background music while I'm doing something else. So I'm not necessarily sitting down and engaged with it per se. But and again, I like to see and hear what they are doing. And I don't necessarily have a favorite. I'll bounce around. I don't necessarily have a favorite. It'll be someone that one of the first 2 stories in the stack catches my attention. And I'm like, okay. And I may leave during the broadcast and go somewhere else because you're boring or I don't like your commercial break. I am not a regular listener, but I do listen because I just find it interesting, like we do here on the show, that we listen to people that are liberal, we listen to people that are conservative, we listen to people that are unaffiliated, people that are more moderate, and I just kind of figure out what are they talking about and how are they perceiving this. The other one is that with mainstream media, with the ABC, NBC, CBS, it gives me a good indication of where that, and this is the wrong word, but I will say that middle of the road is. And the only reason I say that is because they are, while they do lean left, they're not a hard left broadcast entity, despite everything that Republicans say about them.
They're not MSNBC.
No, they're not MSNBC. They're not Mother Jones. But it's interesting, given where most conservatives sit, how liberal they perceive ABC, NBC, and CBS on the political spectrum when they really aren't. They are slightly left. They aren't this liberal broadcast entity that most people do.
You think those surveys that look at like ABC and 83% of their news coverage of Donald Trump's negative, you think they're just kind of slightly liberal?
Well, the issue is, here's the thing, is that maybe this is the idea that what you're looking for is you're looking for equity. You want to make sure that if we have one bad story about Mike Johnston, then we have to have one good story about Mike Johnston. And I disagree with that based on news coverage. I don't think that's what you should be doing. If you have a tally board on the wall over how many good stories and negative stories you have about any subject or any entity, you're doing this job wrong. That's just wrong. Now, could there be things where, let's just say at times, we'll go back a number of years. Let's say that we go to something like the Enron collapse. Nobody would turn around and go, oh, you're not doing enough positive stories about Enron. It was a bad situation at the time. If there are things that are going on that are perceived that Donald Trump is saying that could be positive or negative, yeah. But also the question I have is the perception of the story being negative. I mean, we had a text message in the last 24 hours that because I'm not a hardcore Trump supporter, I shouldn't even be on this station. What am I possibly doing? I should be thrown off this station immediately. There's no way I should ever be allowed to open a microphone because I am not expressing my fealty for Trump. So that's part of the issue as well. However, I did see the erosion in Muir's audience, and I think some of it is due to his debate coverage. And we talked about it the morning after. about there is a percentage of conservatives that do listen to that mainstream media. Part of it because of habit. That's what they're used to. Some of it because lack of access to cable and other things. Some of the older people in certain areas don't have cable. My mom, who's in her 80s, didn't have cable until like 4 months ago. Didn't have cable. So when she was watching the evening news, she would have to watch one of the three main networks. And she's conservative. She's a Republican, votes Republican staunchly, and is disappointed in me sometimes. Some of the things going to come out of my mouth. I understand that, and I appreciate that. But that's what she got her news from. But I do think there's that erosion in some of the debate people based on David Muir's behavior.
Yeah, I see it differently. I think they're fully compromised organizations. I think that they've become political propaganda machines for worldviews that they embrace. Now, do I think that they're coordinating directly with the Democrat Party and getting memos and jumping on conference calls? No, but I think they're made up of progressives. I think that they generally have a progressive worldview. I think they believe that the conservative worldview is overly harmful. And I'll give you, we talked about the way Channel 9 covers the news, right? The filter that Kyle Clark engages the news in is Republicans are extremists.
Yeah.
It's like almost every night there's a story on that. There was a story the other night of some Karen who called because a bunch of Mexicans were hanging out in a parking lot.
Yeah.
That actually became a news story on Channel 9.
Oh, you're exactly right. And that is a stupid thing to do that is a news story, because one thing is that Kyle's trying to shine light on it and saying this is something that is untoward and something that needs your attention, when that's okay. People call and complain. I mean, have you been on that website next door? Holy crap. The number of things people complain about that are just ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely. And I would place 9 News to the left of ABC, NBC, CBS.
I agree.
And quite a bit to the left of them, in all honesty, is where I would go with that one.
So here's, I think they're generally at the top made up of progressives. I think that the way they look at the news is through a progressive lens. And I believe that they're at their core, they have a passion to drive a progressive agenda because they believe they're making the world a better place. I think that what happened in journalism school probably 15, 20 years ago is that the professors said to the students, you have a role and responsibility to make the world a better place. You journalists, you have a voice, you have a microphone, you can change the direction of this country, and you need to use your power to make this world, quote, a better place. And so a whole generation of young journalists went out into the field and said, well, I can't just report the news. I need to confront the oppressors and try to make the world a better place.
I disagree with you laying it on the education system. I understand why that would be the perception, but I disagree. I think the education system has become very poor at educating actual journalists as far as getting to there. I don't think they're necessarily creating them as advocacy journalists. And for that, I lay that on the industry. The change that you're talking about, I see it in the industry because we started having advocacy journalism. We started having outlets that are saying we are going to further a particular worldview. We have one here locally in Colorado that popped up 18, 19 years ago that still makes its rounds and is sometimes given breath even on our local news stations. I see it pop up nationally quite a bit. No. You'll be familiar with it, and listeners will be familiar with it if I say the name of the organization, Colorado Newsline.
Oh, yeah.
They are a liberal advocacy news organization. They take a position and they advocate even openly for the supporters. And I won't say advertisers. It's more like an NPR thing where there are organizations that donate money, but they will then create positive coverage for those organizations. They are involved in advocacy journalism from a liberal perspective. And that is absolutely what they do. And I also throw rocks at all sorts of news operations. But in this case, I'm going to pick out Fox News. The thing that Fox News that annoys me more than anything else is they have these discussion shows and involve their news anchors. What in the hell are you doing? And this is something that has happened inside of all of news media. You can have someone that could be like what you would call in the British terminology, the presenter, who is kind of the host of the show. I do this, and I'm going to pass off to the sports guy. I'm going to pass off to the news person, pass off to this person. But when the person that is delivering the newscast sits in on the opinion show, you have broken the line of journalism. That is not what a journalist does. We have some very good journalists that come on the show, and they will talk about, well, this is my opinion. They won't sit here and say this and this and this and this. And I'm very upset with the vast majority. And there are liberal. MSNBC does this all the time. CNN does it all the time. Fox News does it all the time. Newsmax does it all the time. And it drives me nuts. The fact that you're trying to ask the political opinion from a journalist, shut the hell up. Any reasonable journalist knows to pull back. And we've even dealt with our own Salem National News correspondent. As far as when we asked him his personal opinions, he didn't get into the idea of Trump, Harris, anything else. It was other things when we talked to him. So that's a real solid journalist. Anyone that you see sitting down on any of these opinion shows that says they are a news reporter, after you see them on the opinion show, ignore them.
Well, was that you think that was where Channel 9 really broke down? Because they gave Kyle Clark Next, and he's also the evening anchorman.
Oh yeah, and the problem is that it becomes, because Next is in my opinion, Next is an opinion show. It is it's part news, part opinion. But then when he sits behind the news desk, he can't help but bring that persona in, and a lot of his opinions color it. But even then, the fact that he does a show that does opinion, you then cannot be a straight news anchor. It would be absolutely ridiculous here on CanUS if after we wrap up the show, I go and anchor the news here for 4 hours. That would be phenomenally stupid, and I don't think anybody listening, no one in our audience should honestly recognize me as a news person if I did that. They should reject everything that is coming out of my face hole because of that.
Yep.
Because I've done opinion all morning and I turn around and do news. It's got to be one
we are
or the
not
other.
Journalists.
No,
we're not journalists at all. So there's been a handful of moments where it was almost like something died in me.
Yeah.
Watching the news. Okay.
I've been there too, my friend. I have been there too. Yes.
You're like, oh, we're never going to recover from this. Number one was Dan Rather and George W. Bush in the National Guard story, where he just kept doubling down. Yeah. Right. And you're like, dude, the whole thing, Little Green Footballs. It used to be a website that totally exposed it. And you're like, Dan Rather. Yeah. Dan, what are you doing? And he kept going and going and going. He kept fighting it. And you're just like, bro.
Don't do that one.
Nora O'Donnell, when she was working for 60 Minutes, is interviewing people that suffer from diseases that have now figured out a way to splice their embryos in offspring to make sure, or to identify, actually not splice, but identify ones that don't carry it.
And then use those embryos.
To make
selective
babies.
Genetics.
Right.
Yeah. They're not manipulating the genes, but they're getting a whole bunch of embryos and then doing genetic testing and choosing only the ones that don't have what they don't want to have. Yep.
And the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's one question you need to ask.
Yeah.
There's one question you need to ask. Would you want your parents to have done this?
Yes.
Because you wouldn't be here if your parents had done the same procedure. And it was just, it's an honest question. Like, you're talking to people going through a process that if one generation prior to them had done, they would not be living, breathing human beings.
Yep. And
where she never got to it.
And where's the line? And that's the thing with the Norris. She never asked about the line. I mean, there was the idea of, are you playing God? But the idea is, where do we go for the line? I mean, do we go into genetic testing? And I mean, again, I acknowledge this is a ridiculous example, but I'm using it to be ridiculous based on why she didn't ask the question. You could honestly feasibly think, well, both myself and my wife were athletes, and so maybe want to make sure that we have a son or a daughter that has the ability to be a college athlete. Yeah. So maybe we pick the person that genetically is more predisposed to certain type of traits, height, speed, development, who knows? But those would be things that would be hard-coded in there. So are we going to start choosing that, even down to the point, or do we choose designer babies, where when you go in, you're going to decide, oh, I want this hair, this eyes. That's where that should go. And Nora left that on the table. And it was that
awful. One. And then when Kyle Clark at the very beginning of the pandemic, and I put this video up the other day, says, there's all these questions going on. Yeah. You have, are we going to shut down this? Are we going to shut down that? Can you go to the grocery store anymore? What's going to happen to the food supply, everything's in pandemonium. And he comes out and says, we can't challenge the people making decisions because they're the firefighters coming to your house to try to rescue you. You just need to do what they tell you to do. Yeah. And I just sat there, and it was like that moment where I was just like, I will never recover from this with Kyle Clark, because that's your job as a journalist.
Yeah, it's
like,
a question.
You represent the viewers, and you go to the people of power, and you go, well, what about this? Yeah. Why are you shutting down churches while you're keeping liquor stores and strip clubs open?
Yep.
Why are you making this decision about schools? Why are you making... No, your job is to challenge those people that are making decisions. And when he turned around and faced his viewers and became a voice on behalf of those making decisions, those in power, and instead told the people to sit down and shut up, that's where I went.
Yeah, he became an advocate. He became an advocate. And you're absolutely right that in that situation, the question should be asked about how are we making decisions as far as what groups can go where and why. And one of the, again, and I brought this up a number of times about how stupid we were at the beginning of the pandemic, but I was very angry at the time when everybody said, okay, now we're going to have to stay home and we're going to shut everything down. And then for the next 48 hours, we all went and stood next to each other at the grocery store in long lines. And I'm standing there with my wife and kids at the time going, this is phenomenally stupid. This is why we are not going to do well in this thing, because the very first thing we were told is stay away from everybody. Wait, go gather in a closed area and stand around each other a lot of time with bad masks and face coverings, and because who knows who's in there shedding viruses. And so you're just like, this is ridiculous. There's another one that kind of, it's not necessarily broken me, but another one that changed somewhat of what I was looking at in the media. And it goes back to the launching of Fox News. And when Fox News comes out, you remember their tagline was, we report, you decide, fair and balanced. Yet, and I forget which anchor it was, but this is in the first month or so, the anchor came out and says, no. We are the balance to the mainstream media. And I'm like, wait, hold on. That's not fair and balanced. They have just admitted that they are taking on a specific position in order to go against what they view as another group of reporting. You are no longer fair and balanced. You're no longer we report, you decide. It is based on what the anchor said, we decide, now we report. And that's exactly what I feel Kyle Clark does. Same thing. So that to me was another break in the wall where you're just like, well, this is what we're doing now. This is just it.
So I want to get to this question for our listeners. Feel free to call in or text in on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Where do you get your news now?
That's a good one.
I think we're having a transformative moment as people shift to getting their news from X.
I got another question for him as well. Where do the younger people in your life, younger coworkers, younger friends, kids, grandkids, where are they getting their news? Because that's something that is shocking just talking to my kids.
There's no Gen Zs that watch nightly news.
No, not at all. And barely Gen Zs that watch things like CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News or Newsmax. Yeah. There aren't a lot of them out there either. And so they are consuming media in an entirely different ecosphere. Yeah. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of that. That's where they are getting their news from. One, it's not long form and it's done in digestible bite sizes, but oftentimes lacks context. So I'd be super curious to see where everybody else gets.
And is that good for us? I think you can make arguments on either side. One, I think you get news faster.
Yeah.
You get information quicker, and you tend to actually, in some cases, get more accurate news, but in other cases, you can go down weird rabbit holes that are not correct, and X has got to step in with their community notes.
Yeah, and part of it is that if you're getting news and information through something like a social media platform, whatever it may be, there are no guardrails as far as editorial decisions on whether or not that is true. Yeah. It is just out there, and so you've now taken. There are several, in most news organizations, there are several steps you have to go through until your story hits the air or is printed or hits the airwaves. But as far as radio, that doesn't exist inside of social media. And so it's another erosion of what journalism is and should be. And that's going to be real fun in the next 15 years.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971. I want to talk to you about my good friend Dan Kaplis and his firm, Dan Kaplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved. In the case you show up with one of those attorneys with the slick back hair on the billboard bus going by, I don't know. People might not take you so seriously. Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer. He's also a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted that they are the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. You must be thinking, well, Dan Kaplis must be reserved for the rich and wealthy. No, Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Lots of text messages coming in on the Dan Kaplis text line here. Lee Keltner was murdered by Channel 9 News 25 days before the 2020 presidential election. This is from Steven. Many other responsible journalists refer to this as a political assassination.
Political, really?
I don't know if it was a political assassination, but it was definitely a moment of incredible what's the word I'm looking for here?
I know what word I would use, but
negligence.
Yeah.
Just negligence.
I would say incompetence as
well. Competence, yeah.
Absolute incompetence. And the reason that I would worry about drawing the conclusion that it was an assassination and using that word is you're making the determination that it was intentional. I see nothing in that interaction that led me to believe it was intentional. What I see is Channel 9 making awful decisions on who they hire for security, not doing proper vetting, and the security company getting someone that is completely and totally unqualified for that situation. And when confronted in that manner, that individual made a horrible decision that some people will never, ever recover for. And that man should be blamed for it for the rest of his life. It was atrocious that he took on the job of security and decided in that instance that was the necessary response. And I'm talking about this from someone who was punched in the face at a charity event just this past weekend, as far as understanding what appropriate response is in certain aggressive situations. So that's the problem there. Yeah.
I see it as a systemic reflection of how Channel 9 views conservatives.
Okay, I can get there with you. I can get there with you.
Where they really, I really believe that Kyle Clark thinks that the worst thing that could happen in this state is Republicans getting control of it. I think he wants them to look like extremists. I think that he really believes they're a threat to society in some capacity. And I think that probably permeates throughout Channel 9. So if you end up on the street confronted with a conservative, you see them as a major threat, and it probably led to the overreaction of shooting Lee Keltner in the face.
That is a great analysis, and I can't disagree with you on that one. I think that's right. I think you're right on that one.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Elon Musk posting to X that Hillary Clinton's comments on possibly putting people in jail for spreading misinformation are very troubling. Clinton making the statements on MSNBC. Take a listen.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence.
She failed, however, to explain who would determine what is classified as misinformation. The former chief of police for Uvalde schools in Texas made his first court appearance on criminal charges that accuse him of failing to take sufficient action during the Robb Elementary School shooting back in 2022. Pete Arredondo has pleaded not guilty to multiple counts of child endangerment and abandonment, with his attorney arguing that his actions were not criminally negligent. Another former Uvalde school police officer, Adrian Gonzalez, faces similar charges and pleaded not guilty during a court hearing back in July. Family members of some of the victims were at the pretrial hearing, where another court hearing was scheduled for later this year. With accusations over support for in vitro fertilization quickly becoming a hot topic as we head into this year's presidential election, the Senate is holding a vote this week that some are calling political theater.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Weil, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Do you think Republicans should continue to do these debates with things like entities like ABC and Channel 9 and those types of groups?
Absolutely. 110%. Why not? I'm curious about that.
I think I think they have other ways to communicate to big audiences. So I think X Spaces, I think podcasts. I think you could even do debates via X Spaces or some of these podcasts. But I believe that these mainstream media organizations are so compromised and trying to drive an agenda that it doesn't make any sense. You end up in these 3-on-1 types of situations. How do you win that? How do you win a 3-on-1 type of situation?
Yeah, well, the thing is that this is the reason that I would advocate they absolutely should, is because how else are you going to talk to that audience? How else are you going to lean into the persuadable, either moderate or liberal voters? And that's where I think a mistake is made. I have many, many criticisms of Pete Buttigieg, but one of the things I think he does absolutely correct is he goes on Fox and will do it as often and as many times as possible, because if you don't have that conversation with the people that don't regularly interact with you, you can't ever get them to listen to what you're having to say. And so that's why I would sit there and say it is I would say absolutely they should, because even if you went on like with Donald Trump doing all the podcast interviews, but they're all with pro-Trump conservatives. Yeah. How many people that are like, oh, I'm not sure I like Kamala, but I'm uncomfortable with Trump. How many of them are in that ecosystem of those pro-Trump podcasters? And same thing with Kamala and the interviews that she has done. I mean, going and sitting down, National Association of Black Journalists. Okay. That was atypical for Trump, very typical for a Democrat candidate. So she wasn't going anywhere else. If she would have gone to another organization that was much more conservative, that's doing the thing that Trump did.
And I do think there's a difference between interviews and debates, though.
That's a fair point. That's a good point.
Go on, have those conversations, but in a debate where you're seeking to get a victory against your opponent and you have to deal with the moderators supporting your opponent, doesn't seem fair to me. I think Republicans should stop doing any type of debates on Channel 9. There's plenty of other outlets, Channel 4, Channel 7, Fox 31, that'll provide much better debate situations. So drop Kyle Clark and Channel 9 entirely. Give me a call. Let me know what you think. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Two things that hit a family budget the hardest: the price of gas and of groceries. Let us ease that pain at the pump when you enter the $18,000 gas and groceries giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gift cards for gas and groceries. 3 first prize winners each get $1,000 gift cards, and 10 second prize winners will get $500 gift cards for gas and groceries. That's $18,000 total.
For complete details, go to 710knus.com.
Great text message here from Jason in Denver on the Dan Caplis text line. Well, I get my news from Blake Olson, where it is impossible to know his political affiliation.
It is impossible. I have no idea.
Speaking of Blake Olson, let's do You Choose the News, Bill.
All righty. Yes, it is that time of the morning where we make questionable decisions, and we call it You Choose the News. Nobody in charge is awake at this hour, and this is what happens when Jeff and I are left unsupervised. I have gone through the interwebs, found really dumb stories about us humans, given them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Why? Well, because the secret, and we're just being silly. Why not? We got microphones. Nobody's watching. We're going to do what we want to do. Alrighty. Mr. Hunt, Mr. Olson, the true journalist on this broadcast from the newsroom, is joining us. Here are your choices this morning, gentlemen. Headline number 1, Iowa town super woke. Headline number 2, paying for the problem. Headline number 3, government policy hurting family farms. And headline number 4, just being neighborly. Mr. Hunt.
Start with the Iowa town.
Yes, an Iowa town has gone super woke. We are traveling to Shelby, Iowa this morning, courtesy of news station KETV. Citizens inside of Shelby are concerned their town has gone super woke, and they might not be able to drink anything soon because they've had some problem at the water pump station there in town, and now their water is pink. Pink. Yeah, that's
pink water.
That's super woke. Well, that's super woke, though. It's all pink. That's all LGBTQ.
So what was the problem?
They're not really sure yet. They just say that they've tested it. They say it's safe to drink. And the people in the town go, yeah, sure. It tastes like pennies, and I'm not doing it, and I'm not drinking the pink water.
The pink water
they say that at there were 4 pumps at the water station that were shut off recently for maintenance. Only 2 of the 4 have turned back on. Still, not an explanation for pink water. I don't know what the town officials are doing or in charge of, but that's what they're saying so far. Again, don't drink the pink water.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, no way. Again, just seriously. All right, Blake Olson in the newsroom.
The gender reveal gone wrong.
Exactly. Oh, that's good.
That
if you're shooting in the toilet for the gender reveal, look at the pink water. So yeah, you've done this wrong. All righty. Blake Olson, paying for the problem, government policy hurting family farms, or being neighborly?
Paying for the problem.
Yes, paying for the problem. This might be a solution to people getting all angry when they're on airline flights. Australian federal police are now deciding to charge people that make disturbances in flight for the fuel that they cost the airline for diverting the flight. A 32-year-old man is now going to have to pay right around $6,000.
Great idea.
Yeah, because he started acting a fool on a flight. So they had to divert it. So now the airline has come back and said, hey, maybe we can get some cash for this stuff. And the federal police in Australia go, yeah, sounds like a good idea.
And,
that if you're
and charge them for the wasted time that everybody else had to go through for diverting that flight too.
Exactly. It's a perfect, this is a wonderful thing that if you stand up and you're like, hey, if you want to keep doing this, it's going to charge you an extra $10,000 or $15,000.
Yep.
That'll stop some of this.
That
pretty
will
quickly.
stop a lot of it.
Yeah, it will. It certainly will. Now, they're real weird people drinking too much. Stop there. But other than that,
put it on the credit card,
man. Do you know that I'm a plus miles man? You can't tell me what I can do. Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, Mr. Hunt, your final choice this morning: government policy hurting family farms, or just being neighborly?
Let's do the family farms.
Yeah, government policy is hurting family farms. Oddly enough, this is not in America. We are traveling over to Afghanistan. You will remember the Taliban supreme leader had said in April of 2022, no more growing the poppies. No more poppies. No more at all. Yes, the Lion, the Witch, and Dorothy were all, really mad about that. But anyway, the problem is now the local farmers can't make any money. A local farmer there was interviewed recently and said he made around $5,000 to $7,000 per season from the plant. Yes, it's used to produce opium and heroin, but he's saying, hey, I'm using it to feed my family. Now he's transferred his crops over into cotton, and he's making barely $3,000 a season. He said it's absolutely ridiculous, and many of the farmers there are still doing some poppy farming, keeping some of the opium, and they're just waiting until the black market comes back, and then they're going to sell it.
I don't know if that's ever going to come back.
I don't know.
It's everything being
well, that's it. Unfortunately, that's the end of You Choose the News.
Built.
Yeah, exactly.
When we come back, is the Pope Francis, is he going woke? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Is he drinking the pink water? News Talk 710 KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. You're listening to 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Proud to announce that none of us were injured in any pager explosions that took place yesterday.
That was so fun.
I'm watching the videos on Fox right now.
Yeah. I mean, there is a part of me that really kind of leans into the Schadenfreude, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I was like,
and there's a middle school boy element to it on where the explosions went off.
Yeah. And there's that part of me that's like, F around and find out. See what happens. Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that Hezbollah is like, we has lots of missiles. We mad. We're going to shoot the missiles. And Israel's like, we just put explosive in your pagers. What do you think we could do next? We respect your missiles. However, understand we were able to target you individually. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a lesson.
What do you think the response is this morning? These dudes, I mean, one of the craziest videos is the one in the hospital where they're going around and it's just chock full of dudes.
Yeah.
All war-aged, all military-aged men lying on gurneys, holding their private parts because all the explosions went off. What do you think the percentage is of dudes that are going, yeah, I'm doing something different?
I think
versus guys that are like, now I'm really fired up to go after the Jews.
I think that if you were on the outside edges, if you were someone that was like a courier, someone that was, kind of like an office assistant for Hezbollah, I think you're like, yeah, maybe
the
career
assistant
change
to the regional manager.
Yeah, and you're getting caught up in this. You're like, oh, maybe I'm going to back away from this. But if
go
you were
farm some poppy seeds in Afghanistan,
well, that has to be cotton, so that's the problem. And I think though, if you were hardened and you were like, I need to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth, it just hardens you. But then again, if you already had come to that you either needed to get revenge on the Jews for something that you perceive they have done to your family or your religion, and you've gotten to that point already, not much you can do. There isn't anything. I mean, Israel could send you a fruit basket and you wouldn't care. So that there's nothing they can do at that point. So that person's just hardened. I think, though, that where some of the danger could be are if some of the family members of the people that were injured,
got hurt.
Yeah, they look at it and go, oh, you've done this to my family member. And if the family member can't do X, Y, or Z again, there's some sort of major physical ailment or something from that, then you can get more. You can get more
bag taped to their hip for the rest of their life.
Yeah, exactly. Then you can get the idea that I'm going to teach them a lesson. And so, but again, okay, you can go ahead and teach them a lesson, but realize they just personally targeted the person in your family. So be careful the battles that you pick. Be very careful in the situation, because
what do you think every bad guy does with their cell phone these days now?
Oh,
after that.
Oh yeah, I know. And the other thing we're talking about,
push it further away from the desk.
It's like, no, maybe I won't have it there. Maybe I won't sleep that close to it. And
and now like you put the phone up to your head, to talk.
Yeah, and what can happen there? And this is also going to be very interesting, because does this then lead into, and you talked about a little bit last hour, of trying to do another counterterrorism, but people now to get revenge, putting explosives into cell phones, etc. Is there a way to do that? Because it looks like this story is that Israel had interrupted the shipment for coming out of Taiwan, and they got a hold of it, delayed it for a little while they loaded all the pagers up with the explosives and the triggers, and then continued the shipment on its way. And Hezbollah is even mad at Taiwan, going, how come you didn't tell us this happened? And they're like, they didn't know it happened. We didn't. Didn't you check the tracking number? We shipped it to you. You got a little email. It said, click on the tracking number.
Do you think our TSA security people could pick these stuff out of cell phones and pagers if they're in there?
No. And it's only because the TSA people seem very, very nice. They seem really dedicated to their job, but no, they're not counterterrorism experts. No way. No. I've seen the people they check.
Do you think we're going to have to adjust our security?
I think what we'll probably do is it's going to be for certain people. It's going to be a check as far as when your cell phone, etc., when it got there, or there's going to be some post screening afterwards. And for like you and I, no, because there's no reason for the terrorists.
I go down to the Verizon store and just pick it up there.
Yeah, we don't do anything. But people that are involved in government, people that may be higher profile as far as, in the economy. If you are someone like an Elon Musk, a Mark Cuban, if you're a Tulsi Gabbard, if you're Nikki Haley, you probably are going to have to, with your cell phones, go through an extra layer of security. And I would also assume that all White House employees would probably have to do that as well. There's going to be an extra layer of security in the cell phone before you actually take possession of it. It was my guess.
Especially if you're near the president of the United States.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, that's going to be a whole another bag of worms.
Do you remember that Mission Impossible movie where they stuck these little things up people's noses?
Yes.
And then they could trigger them remotely and it would kill the person?
Yeah, I was thinking of what is it? Total Recall, back with the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. Right for the thing up the nose. I'm like, they're total recalling them. This is crazy. Yeah,
man, wild technology. Jay from Louisville texting in. It's an act of war by Israel. Almost 3,000 people injured. Come on, man. We're coming on 1 full year since October 7th. They're going to drag us into some other stuff if we don't back away. Jay, do you think Israel's dragging us in?
Yeah, and here's the other part is and the question I would say is, what do you mean by back away? That I have a real question with, because if the issue is that you want to pull support from one of our closest allies and just say, we're going hands off, whatever happens inside the Arab world, we're not dealing with it. I have a real issue with that based on how America is looked at and treated internationally with our alliances, because what happens with all of our other allies if they see us go hands off with Israel and say, we're not dealing with this anymore and we're not supporting them? They're one of our strongest allies. What does that do to everybody in NATO? What does it do if we try to come to the table for any sort of negotiations? We now look like we're full of crap. So that's one of the things we can't do, unfortunately. That is not a possibility. That should not ever be on the table in this conversation, in my opinion.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Make sure you put that into your phone. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson.
Hey, good morning, guys. 51 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 84 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: federal authorities are investigating after mail containing white powder was sent to state election offices across the U.S. Some offices were evacuated, but none of the mail turned out to be hazardous. The powder was sent to election offices in 17 states. A suspicious package was sent to the Colorado Secretary of State's office. It was intercepted at a mail facility Tuesday with a return address to the U.S. Trader Elimination Army. Officials say it contained a white powder that turned out to be harmless. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold calls this unacceptable. In the first public appearance since the second attempted assassination of him, former President Trump took part in a small town hall event in Michigan. He said that only consequential presidents get shot at, and went on to say that it is a dangerous business running for president. Florida is conducting its own investigation of the attempted assassination. And who was the crazy man working with? People trying to figure that out. Who was tipping him off? Was there anyone tipping him off? Could it be a deep state establishment type posing as a conservative? Stay tuned to that one. Hey, Peter Doocy exposing Karine Jean-Pierre again.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat.
President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy.
How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay, from an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident. And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement. And, it is...
Thank God for Peter Ducey. A woman is charged in a homicide earlier this month in Denver. Police say a woman was found dead September 7th in a bedroom of her apartment at the Renaissance Lofts on North Broadway. Investigators later identified Jasmine Taylor as the suspect. Authorities say the suspect assaulted the victim before her body was discovered. Taylor is with first-degree murder, a murder charge. One person is wounded. Following a shooting on a bus in Denver, police say the victim was shot yesterday on a bus near 15th and Tremont. The person was hospitalized with a non-life-threatening injury. No arrests have been made. A Colorado council member is now charged with shooting a 17-year-old in the face for trespassing. That was the case in Jefferson County. And let's see, what else do we have? Crews continue to fight a wildfire in Larimer County as of last night. The blaze is estimated to be 128 acres, and several evacuation orders remain in effect. The wildfire began burning on Monday in the Crystal Lakes area. Investigators determined the fire originated on private property and was caused by humans. It's 50 in Glendale, 48 in Arvada, 51 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunshine across the Denver metro, cooler, comfortable temps in the lower to mid-80s, cleared tonight, lows in the lower 50s. Mid-80s for Thursday and Friday, going to keep it dry as we round out the work week, lows in the lower to mid-50s. For the weekend, 70s on Saturday, rain showers developing, heavy rains possible through Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Back to the Jeff and Bill show. What you're about to get, you're not going to hear anywhere else on any radio station in Colorado. I guarantee that, because Billy and I were like the two kids in college that would stay up all night debating one issue.
Yes.
And dive into it and not feel offended because it is a controversial issue. And in fact, the more of the controversial issue, the better.
It is. The more
dive
fun
into it, baby.
Yeah, and we're not talking about who's better, Michael Jackson or Prince. Gotta sell the debate, but still, we're not talking about that. We're talking about interesting issues that we're going to dive into, and we're going to explore it in a way that nobody else, at least in my opinion, nobody else has the stones. I know there are people out there that can. I just think there are people out there that are afraid to, that aren't willing to have this discussion with our listeners, and we don't have any fear.
No, we don't. We don't. And we want you to be a part of this conversation.
Absolutely.
So feel free to give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. That text message comes straight into the studio. All right, so saw this tweet, and in my little Protestant world over the weekend, this tweet went viral. This is about the Pope and comments he made to children in Singapore. This is the Pope here. The Catholic Pope, the Vicar of Christ, the leader of the Catholic Church. All religions are paths to reach God. They are, to make a comparison, like different languages, different dialects to get there. But God is God for everyone. If you start to fight saying, my religion is more important than yours, mine is true and yours isn't, where will this lead us? There is only one God, and each of us has a language to arrive at God. Some are Sheikhs, some Muslims, Hindu, Christians. They are different ways to God. No, the Pope is wrong on that one. Very clearly wrong, because Jesus, who is God, came to earth, answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. No one comes to the Father except through me. So Protestants on X kind of, like we do with our Catholics, since we've been doing with our Catholic friends since the Renaissance and Martin Luther, we've been protesting. That's actually where the term Protestant comes from. We are protesters. So I went and did some digging on this.
Thanks, Martin Luther.
And
church door thing. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm writing down my frustrations here.
Exactly. As a Catholic in the discussion, I think I get a chance. I think I get to do that. I'm just saying.
So I go and do some digging to see how my Catholic friends are responding to this bizarre woke statement that there are lots of paths to God that came from the Pope. And whom behold comes to the defense of Pope Francis, then Benedictine College. Now, I love Benedictine College because you don't get more conservative than Benedictine College. And here's what they said. They actually put this out over the weekend. Did Pope Francis just say all religions are equally true? And they dive into essentially three things that they come to the defense of Pope Francis. First, they talk about double-checking catechism. Often the troubling things, Pope Francis says, are just paraphrases of the catechism. What I quoted above about salvation, and they're talking about Pope Francis's comments, is from number 846 of the catechism. What comes right before it and right after it are also important. Right before it, the church teaches about truth in other faiths, and says about Muslims, together with us, they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day. Right after that, the catechism teaches that those through no fault of their own, who do not know the gospel of Christ or his church, but who nevertheless seek God with a sincere heart and are moved by grace, try in their actions do his will as they know it through the dictates of their conscience, those two may achieve eternal salvation. Think of it this way. When we die, each one of us, each Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, will face Jesus Christ, our King and Judge. Some of us will embrace him. Others will flee from him. Muslims may see in him the one God they love, or they may stick to what their religion gets wrong about God, the impossibility of the incarnation for starters, and flee. Hindus may follow what their religion gets right about transcendence or what it gets wrong about reincarnation, and so on. If any is saved, it will be through Christ and their conformity to the conscience placed in them through him. If any is lost, it will be by rejecting Christ and the conscience he gave them. Bill, there are moments where I'm kind of drawn to the Catholic Church. And I'm like, I was baptized Catholic as a kid. And all my Catholic friends are like, oh, you're going to come back. You're going to come back. And I've had long debates with my Catholic friends. I've probably got 15 copies of Road to Rome, which is the Protestant little thing. So my friends are always, Jeff, you're right there. You're right there. And then I get to these points and I'm like, no, you're just wrong on this. And Pope Francis should have been much clearer on the truth. I can't say it any clearer. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, Bill, this is why I'm not invited to interfaith gatherings anymore. I used to be. And I remember I
love the fact that you've been kicked out of groups like I have.
Yeah, right.
That's why we're friends. Right. I love that.
So, oh boy, the text messages are coming in. This is going to be a fun conversation. Nice. Okay. So I even did this with Jared Polis in the room, and it was like a religious freedom day, and my Mormon friends invited me.
Oh.
To this event that they put on. And I'm friends with Mormons.
Yeah.
They're wrong about their theology. I'm friends with Catholics. They're wrong about their theology. I'm friends with Anabaptists. They're wrong about their theology. I'm a friendly guy. But when I get into these like kumbaya moments, where it's like, we all believe in the same God.
Yeah.
I stand there and I go, no, and I'm not interested in doing this with you guys. I think I'm far more interested in how we can be friends in the midst of our biggest differences. So we like to paper over and go, well, we were all going to get there. All the roads will get us there.
Yeah.
All this stuff. No. If you actually sit down and read the Bible or read the Quran or read Hindu teachings, we all believe in very, very different things. And we should talk about those, and we should engage in them, and we should debate in them. We can do it in loving ways. No, I'm all about doing that in loving ways. I don't think you have to, burn people at the stake because you disagree with them in their Bible and their theology and that type of thing. But man, I fundamentally disagree with what the Pope is saying here, that there is only one God. Each of us has a language to arrive at God. And there are different ways to God. Bill, what do you think?
Now, I would disagree with the Pope being that all religions are the path to God. There are some that I can think of that wouldn't be. The one that is probably most prevalent here inside of America would be Scientology. I do not think Scientology is a path to God, but I do think that other religions can be. Absolutely, they can be based on certain precepts and what happens inside the religion. And, and it's somewhat pedantic, but I come to the idea that the path to the mountaintop can be different for everybody. But when you're there, the view is always the same. But it's it's constrained by that path. There are certain things that are okay in some religions, and there are certain things that are okay in others that aren't. But I look for universal truths inside of that. To go back to what we were talking about yesterday, universal truths inside the religions as far as behavior, treating people, and coming to what Christ was saying based on Sermon on the Mount. And I understand the idea of Jesus saying that I am the only path, but however, he doesn't say when, does he? He doesn't put a time frame on it. And that's the thing is that
I disagree with that. I think there's some scripture in there. There, particularly the guy. Now you think about Lazarus. I was reading about this the other day. That's why it comes to mind. Not Lazarus, the guy that came out of the tomb, but there was a guy with Lazarus that had sores on him, and dogs were licking his sores. And there was a rich man that would not care for him. This is like one of the most convicting passages to me. That's why it sticks so much in my heart. And the guy gets sent to hell, and he's like begging Lazarus, who lived poor, had sores, and is now in heaven, to please just help him out. And the message from Jesus is too late. Too late. You had the chance while you were on earth. You didn't do it. And now you're going to suffer. And then the rich man goes, well, please, will you just send somebody to tell my brothers and that this is what hell is like? And Jesus goes, we sent Moses. We sent the prophets. You guys don't listen. So to me, it's pretty clear from Jesus's teaching. You got time on this earth. That's it.
Yeah. However, what we don't have someone in that conversation is the behavior and things of the rich man, because we did go back to the idea that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. So the idea that it is just based on, not based on his behaviors, his life, and how he treated everybody else around him. And that would be a rejection of the basis of Christ's teachings. And so that would be the question, is there is still a path to forgiveness, even at death, as far as where you're going. And that's it. I also keep looking at it thinking that if, for whatever reason, our Creator is going to put people in hell based on what I'm going to term as a technicality, I have some issues with the idea of that being an all-loving, all-knowing creator. Because if we are gonna, we on earth have bifurcated our religions. We have diced them up to little tiny pieces. And if it is because of that dicing and that cutting up of the pie, that only a small, slim portion of that pie then has the path to God, I have a question about him being all loving. And I have a question. It's like the Jehovah's Witnesses. They have a set cap of how many people they think are going to go to heaven, which, again, I know it's been said a lot of times, makes you wonder why they keep walking around knocking on doors. I'd keep that a secret. I wouldn't tell anybody that we only get this many. Stop it. Stop trying to recruit. So I'd be so mad at the recruitment efforts.
Why look at it as God has to save everybody when it was us that disobeyed him?
But aren't we created in his image? So then we were the ones that rebelled. So he said, welcome to paradise. Yes.
It is, you have everything you're ever going to need. It is amazing. And then mankind was like, meh.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this. And I'm going to directly rebel. If he wanted to be purely justice oriented with no grace, just purely justice oriented, every single human being deserves to burn in hell.
Yeah, that's where we start from. That's where we start. Yeah. And if we have redemption through our path, yeah, absolutely.
Our path?
Yeah, through our path, as far as how you live your life and what you're doing.
So
and
why did Jesus die then?
Well, he was forgiving our original sin. He was giving us the opportunity. He was forgiving our sins for that one. So again, if Jesus died for our sins, then it really wouldn't matter what religion you're under, would it? Because it would be all of us. He didn't come here and say, hey, I'm only doing this for Lutherans. Again, Lutherans didn't exist at the time, but he didn't do that. So that's the idea, is if he was dying for all of us, and the other part being that if God created us in his image, it would seem to be not an all-loving, all-knowing, all-forgiving God that would create people that he knows, because he would have to know.
But why does he have to get into all-forgiving? Where does that go? Because that doesn't seem like if a judge, for instance, is all-forgiving, do you think there's justice being done if you take over the Venezuelan apartment complex?
But how do you get forgiveness from God? What's the mechanism? What is supposed to happen?
There's a penalty paid.
Well, but there's something more important than that. There's something much more important than that. And that is genuinely being sorry and repenting in your heart and soul. That's what's needed.
Right. And
that's what's needed.
Why do some repent and some don't?
Because some people are still broken and some people haven't come to Christ. And there are some people that are inside of the religion that don't repent. And there are people that are outside the religion that don't repent. But there are people that live a perfectly Christ-like life that are not inside the religion. And the issue for me would be that if we are made in God's image, and there is only a small portion of the religion that actually has the true belief, then why the hell is he wasting the time with everybody else? Because he would know. He would know when he created them. They would reject him and they would continue down this path. What I feel like is it's almost like he already knows the score of the game, but the majority of the people that are playing, he's going to kill them and send them to hell. That seems like a really weird thing as far as a God that is telling us that he's both loving and forgiving.
You can look at that from that perspective, or you can look at it from there are those he's going to choose to redeem out of what should be a just penalty for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? So you could go, well, he only selected some, but what about all those that he's not selecting? Or you could go, yeah, all of us deserve it because we were all in paradise. We're naturally sinful people. Paul talks about how you have this it's just like bizarre desire to always want to do what's wrong. Like you have to like fight for what's good. You just have this natural tendency that leans in towards your sin.
I have to say that I disagree with Paul in that writing. I do not think that I think he makes an assumption.
You think
based
people
on
are
what's
naturally
happening there.
good? I think people are naturally selfish.
But I'm not certain that selfish is necessarily bad per se. And that's the idea, is that we are all bent towards evil. We're all broken and we have the opportunity for it. But I disagree that everyone is naturally going to be necessarily evil. And I think that's kind of a pre-disclosure. But still, what I want to go back to is if it is only the path to the Lord through Jesus, then why are the Israelites the chosen people?
So we got grafted into that. And then there's a lot of debate in the New Testament
but it would be,
to whether or not.
But it would be a rejection.
The Jews are going to be continued into that. I think that they are. But I think there's plenty of scripture out there that God chooses those he wants to rescue.
Yeah.
He chose that Israel is the nation. He has a covenant with them. He doesn't break his covenants. And that we as Christians, no, he doesn't. When did he break his covenant?
I think he's gone. He said, well, at one point, we talked about it yesterday. At one point, he said that that slavery is okay. We don't go back.
So those are different. Those are different than covenants.
Well, what I'm saying.
Okay, so
I understand
you
your
can
position
have
on it.
You have rules that are specific to times and places for Israel, and then you have universal rules that are universal at all times in all cases. And then you and I had this debate yesterday. For anyone who missed it, is something true because it's a principle and true in itself, or is it good simply because God says it is? So where's your anchor point? Where's your argument in that?
And that's the conversation that broke one of my kids' brains yesterday. They were like, "You did that on the air? Oh my God!" They were totally impressed with that. And so that's why our listeners spend this time with us. And so if it is a covenant and it's unbreakable with the Israelites, then Jesus saying that he is the only path breaks the covenant. Has to.
No, so this is what you get into. I'm forgetting the word. It's not a break; it's a fulfillment of the covenant.
How is it a fulfillment?
So
because as long as the Jews still reject Christ as the Savior, it's not a fulfillment.
Some Jews do.
No, you're right. Some, but the vast majority of the religion, and so that's where I think this breaks. Is the idea that if the Jewish people are the chosen ones of God, then Jesus can't be the only path to the Lord. He can't be, just based on the definition.
So Jesus was the opening of that covenant to the Gentiles. And this is when you have Peter and the food that descends. So do you remember this story? So all the different foods you could eat, this happens to Peter, because originally the movement in Jerusalem for Jesus originally was for the Jews.
Yes, absolutely. Because he was Jewish.
And because he was Jewish, right. And then you have this, so he was the Messiah, right?
Yeah.
Jesus is the Messiah for the Jews. You have the opening of the covenant to the Gentiles, guys like you and me. By the way, when I hosted my CCU for Israel night, I opened it with, "Welcome Jews and Gentiles."
Oh,
right?
Nicely done.
I'm a Gentile. You and I are Gentiles. We're not Jews.
Not at all.
That opening of the covenant took place when that food descended to Peter, and now the Gentiles are allowed to partake. That's not a breaking of the covenant. It's a fulfillment of the covenant and an opening of that particular covenant to people that aren't just born Jews.
Yeah. However, the idea that then Jesus is the only path to the Lord would break that covenant because the Jews disagree with that. And that's where it goes off the rails, is that the Jews still do not accept Jesus as this. I
don't think it's going off the rails at all. There's arguments, particularly in the New Testament, about how God is going to help the Jews understand what he's doing with that covenant. That's not a breaking of the covenant with the Jews. He is the Messiah. Remember, the Jews were longing for a Messiah to pay the penalty. You go back to Isaiah, all that stuff. There was a lamb that was going to be the ultimate sacrifice. Because you remember the Jews, if you had to pay for your sin, you had to go do an animal sacrifice.
Yep, exactly.
And so there was a Messiah that was going to come. Jesus was the fulfillment of that. He paid the price. Sinless person paid the price ultimately for those sins so that you don't have to do the animal sacrifices anymore.
Yeah. And the animal sacrifices are always weird. I always thought that because it was the one on.
They could come back.
But that's a really weird thing for me, because the question I would have would be, if I'm supposed to burn a goat or a sheep on the Sabbath because the smell of the burning flesh pleases the Lord. If my neighbor complains, do I get to smite him? Just curious where the rule sits on that one.
So
I appreciate
they don't do it in their yards. They do it in the temple. That's why they don't do it right now. And it could possibly return, but you have the Dome of the Rock there. Yeah. This is why it gets so even then, creative or crazy when it comes to Jerusalem.
The new concert facility out there in Colorado Springs.
Yes.
What would happen if we had a new temple where we're burning the animals all the time? The neighbors are going to go, the smell!
It smells like barbecue all the time.
Yeah, they're going to get so mad about that. So it's exactly right, my friend. We got to pick this up in a second.
The Texans would love it. All right, we've had a great conversation. I love it, Bill. Thank you. We're going to get to Jay. What do you think about what the Pope said? Is he kind of going woke? in his statement that there are different ways to God. I think he's a pretty woke pope, but I'm also not Catholic, so I could criticize him.
It's okay. We still love you cult members.
But right, we're protesting. Shockingly, I'm protesting as a Protestant. Yes. I'm protesting the Pope right now.
So on brand.
Or is he right about this? And, God's going to kind of sort it all out when you get there. I think it's absolutely critical for us to be very clear. It is a loving thing to do, to talk about Jesus being the way, the truth, and the life, because that is the way, the truth, and the life. And you help people when you understand them. And so when you try to go into these multi-faith things and you're like, oh, we'll all figure it out, you're not being loving. Give me a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm going to get hit by lightning.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
A super PAC created by Elon Musk called America PAC is donating $2.1 million to Republican candidates in battleground districts, specifically in New York and California, the states that could decide who controls Congress. This, according to a report. Musk founded the super PAC earlier this year, which is supporting President Donald Trump's bid for election. The popular restaurant chain Red Lobster, known for its affordable seafood and cheddar biscuits, has officially come out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. A U.S. bankruptcy judge approved the seafood chain's reorganization plan earlier this month, which included a lender group led by asset manager Fortress Investment Group taking over the business. The restaurant fell into troubled times because of record high inflation and fewer customers, forcing it to close several dozen restaurants and file for bankruptcy. Red Lobster is now an independent, privately held company with 545 restaurant locations in 44 states and 4 Canadian provinces. Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre is speaking out on social media, sending a message to Americans who do not not prioritize the United States. Earlier this week, Favre called out Americans who, quote, put other countries above the United States, saying, if you're born in the USA or are an American citizen and you put other countries above us, then that's unpatriotic. That's it, he said.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Weil, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The Pope making some interesting statements over the weekend. All religions are paths to reach God? All religions are?
I love how you made it a question. You're my favorites. That is good. Nicely done.
Really? There's only one God, and each of us has a language to arrive at God. There are different ways to God. What frustrates me is I became a born-again Christian when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I kind of believed in that mentality of well, it'll all work itself out, just be a good person, all that stuff. And then in my despair, because I didn't have truth in my life, I cried out to Jesus. Jesus came into my life, filled me with the Holy Spirit, gave me direction. And so I don't do this. I don't make these statements as someone trying to condemn people or be a mean, bigoted Christian Bible thumper. I'm doing it because I found truth. I love it. It's provided guidance in my life. I have personally met Jesus. I cried out to him. I've been filled with the Holy Spirit, and the Bible is true. I have this guidance in my life. And then when I hear religious leaders go, well, there's different paths to God, I'm like, no, it's a loving thing to help people find the truth.
Yeah, you're viewing it as what the Pope is doing is creating a barrier for salvation.
Yes.
And where I'm on the other side, and I see him as breaking down barriers. And that's why this conversation is so much fun and going to be so much fun with our listeners.
Yeah, let's go to the phone lines. Jay Sterling, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, you guys. This is an interesting conversation. You know, my grandpa said to me when I was 16 years old, and he said to me, he goes, and he read the Bible, he read all kinds of stuff. He's a dry land farmer and a rancher. And so, but he had a lot of time on his hands. And he told me one time, he said, you know, religions are so many religions, from the Chinese to the Americans to the Indians. They all have a religion of some sort, whether the Indians had the sun god, whether the whatever, go across the board. And my grandpa said, people go to a religion because they're a weak-minded person. I want your comments on that, because when he said that to me, I'm thinking, he goes, believe in yourself. believe in yourself, because that is the only thing that you have control of, to therefore you can prosper with your own beliefs. Without a sun god, without Buddha, without Christ, you can proceed in all that. I want your guys' comments
That's
on
interesting.
that.
That's really interesting, Jay. And I'm going to go first in front of Jeff, because for me, it seems tremendously lonely. To me, it seems
What did
like,
he mean by that?
Well, and what I mean is this: is I feel that I feel despair in those words, and what I mean by that is that his view, in my opinion, just in my opinion, that we are locked into this temporal existence, and there is nothing larger, there's nothing better. And the problem I have is, if we are only locked in this temporal existence, and this is all there is, why do I have any motivation to actually be a good person? There's nothing on the other end that can provide any salvation, any hope. Even if you just believe that there is no higher power, I believe people can come to the idea of, okay, I can be a moral and good person. But I, like Jeff, I do believe that for so many, religion provides that North Star. Some people misinterpret
for
it.
a weak person, isn't
But
what
why
did
for
he
a weak-
actually mean?
But hang on, but why for a weak person? Because the idea being that what I hear from him is that it's that I can only depend on myself and nobody else. And for me, a weak, the idea of giving up control and giving up the idea that there is another plan, that to me is very strong. It's very easy to say, I'm the only one in charge. I'm the one that gets to determine where my life goes all the time, and this is only based on my choices. It is a stronger person. It's a stronger person that lets go and says, there are things in this world that I cannot control, and I need to learn how to accept them and how to deal with them. To me, that's a form of strength, because it is much, much more difficult to give up control than it is to seize control, in my opinion. But let's see what Jeff has to say.
That's a very interesting way of stating that. So therefore, that's what my grandpa meant when he said that. Basically, you're the only one in control. He goes, nobody's come back exactly, but you are in control of your whole life.
Well, so on the weakness side of things, first of all, Jay, I really appreciate the question. The idea that pretty much all of humanity at some point is searching for God, I think that makes a really good argument that we long for God, that God is true, and that there's something born in us that longs out to figure that issue out.
Missing, yeah.
But I will tell you this about Christianity. Christianity boasts in weakness. So Paul in 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, because I have a savior. I absolutely have to be rescued. I can't figure it out. I can't live the good life. I can't string enough stuff together. I can't read enough books. I can't be smart enough to figure this all out. I need a savior. And that is why Christians love what Christ did on the cross, because you see it as a tremendous act of love, the rescue boat you were looking for that provides the salvation that you need. And now you have not only salvation that's come through Christ, you get a helper. You get the Holy Spirit that gets to guide you through the rest of your life and help you live a life that's to the full. Christ said, I came that they may have life and life to the full. So thank God in my weakness, God rescued me. So Christians, they boast in their weakness.
So is that why you started going back to church?
I fell in love with Jesus. That's why I went back to church. So,
but I've been an altar boy since I was a kid. I've gone to church every Sunday. That's how I grew up on the farm out here.
That's great.
And so therefore I understand the logistics of that. What brought you back to going to that? Was there a weakness in yourself?
Yeah.
You felt like you needed somebody?
Totally.
Like you needed something else?
I was completely lost. And that's why it's got to be a personal relationship with Jesus. It can't just be following rules and dictates and stuff like that. When you, and this was, we had Stephen the other day. My salvation prayer was really simple. It was just, God, I need you. That was it. Will you please reach me? I need you. And it became incredibly personal for me at that moment as Christ met me. Jay, I'm just up against a phone line. Text me. I'm always happy to have more conversations about this if you'd like. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We have absolutely jam-packed phone lines. Continue to try to get in. We'd love to invite you into this conversation. If you can't, join us on the Dan Kaplis text line, 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. The text message comes straight into the studio. We can see it there. What are we talking about? Well, the Pope over the weekend made some interesting statements.
Oh, yeah.
All religions are paths to reach God. They are, to make a comparison, like different languages, different dialects to get there. But God is God for everyone. It's true. God is God for everyone. I disagree with him that there are different ways to God, which is what he says. Now, to my surprise, Benedictine College came to his defense and said, well, this is in the catechism.
My surprise too.
Right, I know.
I was super surprised when you linked that on things and sent it to me. I'm like, what? I literally went back and checked the link again to go, did I push the wrong thing? This can't possibly be Benedictine College saying this. Couldn't possibly be them, but it was. Yes.
So I, as someone who's born Catholic, but I'm a Protestant now, just disagree with the Catholic Church on this. And I think you need to take these opportunities to speak truth. We're going to continue this conversation. Francis, Ron, Glenn, stick around. We want you to be a part of it. We just got to get through this next break. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. And yeah,
Two things that hit a family budget the hardest: the price of gas and of groceries. Let us ease that pain at the pump when you enter the $18,000 gas and groceries giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gift cards for gas and groceries. 3 first prize winners each get $1,000 gift cards, and 10 second prize winners will get $500 gift cards for gas and groceries. That's $18,000 total.
For complete details, go to 710knus.com.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, September 18th, and you've tuned in to 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center, from the Jews, the Gentiles, the Mormons, the Catholics, the Protestants. We're all together
even
today
those Scientologists
discussing this issue.
Yes.
And if you listen to the Pope, we're all on our way. We're all on the same path. There are different ways to God. He's there at the end of the road, no matter what. And us Bible-believing evangelicals go, what? Sola Scriptura. Pope.
Hey, nice.
Means,
Nice
Scripture first.
Yeah. Yep.
Scripture primary is what we believe, which the Bible says, according to Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I think this is a loving thing, to speak truth to people, to help them understand where real truth lies. And but Pope Francis thinks, we need to have interfaith dialogue, and we'll eventually get there.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the idea, and lifelong Catholic, that I'm much more on the side of the Pope, where I believe, and I talked about it last hour, that there are many paths to the top of the mountain. Not all paths, but there are many paths to the top of the mountain, because once you get there, the view is always the same. I'm not that concerned about the path as long as it follows the teachings. But that's me. And you know me, I'm a little weird.
Well, and someone texted in, a good one, 5600. They're Catholic, but they disagree with the Pope on this one, because if all religions are paths to reach God, Satanism?
Yeah, and that's what the first one I thought it was Scientology. So that's where I would that's where I would
love how you
diverge from
compare
him.
those two together.
From in my mind, they're fairly close.
We've got jam-packed phone lines. Francis, you've been very patient. Francis Golden, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, gang. I almost felt compelled to call in. Francis talking Francis.
I know.
This is how it goes down. Okay, I'm not sure.
And Francis, afterwards, hang on. Yeah. We're gonna have confession afterwards, just because, as long as you're on. Just saying. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It could take a while, then. I don't. Okay.
Oh, especially for me.
Well, I heard this. First of all, you got to understand the Jesuits. The Jesuits are all about education. The Jesuits historically ran a little bit adverse to the Catholic Church because they wanted education for everybody. They felt it was, an obligation. And the head of the Jesuit order was always considered the Black Pope. I mean, that was kind of how he was described. So they were always a little off the reservation, which isn't a bad thing historically. But the way I always have viewed this is that it's like an old overhead. I think this is a good way to if you put the light is underneath, obviously, that's the light source. And we put overlays, those plastic overlays, over the overhead projector, and it changes and clouds the view of the light. And I think humanity serves a little bit of that overlay here through some of religion. Obviously, it works for different to help them see the light the way they need to see it. But the bottom line is the flawed part of this whole equation is mankind, not the light. And so the overlays create the cloud, and the overlays impart our religion. It works in different ways for different people, and I think that's how the Pope is expressing this. Embrace your overlay and how you cloud the light, but look to the light regardless. If it works for you, that's the best way to go. That's
interesting. That's interesting, and I can get there with you, because I do believe that as humans, we are flawed, we are broken, and we can't possibly understand the word or language of God. And I'm not saying the word on the Bible. I'm talking about if we were standing in front of God in our human form and he spoke to us, our heads would explode because of his omniscient power, because it's just omnipotence and his power, that we can't communicate on a level that he has the ability to. And so that at times, like you're saying, that we put those filters, those overlays, in order to help us further understand what God is trying to tell us. But I'm certain that my partner will disagree.
That's 100%. You said it better than me, Billy, by a long shot. That's how you live with the light.
Yeah.
Where I get into making sure we remind ourselves in all this, and this is where I end up as a predestinationist, as a Calvinist. We are not going to be able to reason our way back to God. We are so fundamentally flawed, so broken, so selfish, so depraved. This is what you get into with regards to total depravity. That the system is so broken, you and I need to be rescued ourselves. And the only person that can do that is God. And so that's where Christianity breaks from all the other religions. You can't do enough good work. You can't go on enough jihads. You can't deny yourself as much as you want in Hinduism. There's just not enough there. It has to be done with God, and it's done out of grace, and it's done through Jesus Christ, and that becomes the life and the truth. And I get disappointed because with the Pope has, in these interfaith opportunities, the opportunity to share that truth with people. And then he goes on this, well, there's lots of different ways to God. No, there's not. There's one way, and it's great. It's amazing grace. It's the good news. So share that with people. I don't know. What do you think, Francis?
Let me ask you this, Jeff, and this is an earnest question here.
Sure.
Do you think that the Pope's statement, that position that he's announced, is it going to drive people further away from the light, or is it going to get people to think about it and go towards the light? I have my opinion, but I would like to know yours as well.
I think it's a missed opportunity, and this is why I'm not invited to interfaith gatherings. because there is, you get in these rooms sometimes, there's this element that's kind of like kumbaya. Let's find the lowest common denominator that we all agree on and all that stuff. And I'm like, and as a guy who just has been saved, I look at these opportunities and I go, look, it's not just everyone listening to this radio station. My family's had to deal with this since I became saved at 16 years old, and was like, listen up, everybody. I found the truth. Here it is. So I see it as an act of love, of generosity, of compassion to help people understand that truth. And when you take people on these roads of, you're not going to find God in Islam. You're not going to find God in Buddhism. You're not going to find God in Hinduism. They're going to leave you empty at the end of that road. Another good example of this, Francis, was Penn and Teller. Remember Penn from Penn and Teller?
Yep.
So Penn one time said, I get it. Like if you could walk further down the train track and there's people hanging out and playing, and you're running down going, there's a train coming. There's a train coming. It's going to hit you guys, and it's going to not work out well for you. Wouldn't you do that? Wouldn't that be an act of loving compassion? And I think people that have experienced Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit are just trying to do the same thing. We're going, guys, it's coming for you. Judgment's coming for you. It's not going to turn out well. I found a way through. Guys. Here it is. And so it becomes an act of loving compassion and charity. So when I see the Pope go, well, there's different ways, I see it as I'm disappointed in him.
Jeff, can I ask you? This is my position, and don't be offended or anything.
I'm not going to be offended.
Not meant that way. Is it? I think that what you're enunciating here is a focus on your overlay, not on the light. And I think that and that's what I think the Pope is at least trying to draw us away from is be focused on what is the good, not on how you filter the good. And that's my position on it. And I try to do that. And I go to church. I'm a Catholic, for heaven's sake. I mean, literally, that's the way I view it. And so I think that what happens in some of these things is that if you get focused on the overlay, there becomes a piousness, a human frailty piousness, and it can show up in Muslims, it can show up in Jews, it can show up in Catholics, it can show up in evangelicals, it can show up in almost any capacity. And that's where the problem is that when you start thinking that you're the only thing that matters, that draws attention away from the light. I want to be not on overlay and more on light.
Do you believe, though, that there is truth?
Yes, I do believe there is truth. And I think that, yes, I absolutely believe that. And I do believe, kind of like I think Billy's saying, is that not all paths lead to the truth. I mean, I'm not, look, God, the other day, boy, I'm throwing in some religion in here, but the other day I drove by the Church of Cannabis.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I can't get my head around that. Like that, because that is a church that is entirely focused on what's the content of the overlay, which is just pot. Okay. So I don't think that when you have all focus on the overlay and not on the light, that's a problem. Church of the Cannabis, example one. I mean, I can't.
That's a good point.
That's a good one. Francis, great conversation. We've got jam-packed phone lines. We're going to give folks another chance to hear. Really appreciate that. Look, this is a totally unique show.
Yeah.
It is a news talk show with two guys that are happy to talk about their faith and debate it as well.
Where else are you going to find this? Where else on the radio dial this morning are you going to find this type of a conversation at this depth that you have the ability to participate just by picking up the phone and calling us or by texting?
Yeah.
That's why we enjoy the fact that you, our listeners, are spending this time with us, because we've made this promise when Jeff and I launched the show. We're going to do things nobody else is willing to. This is an example. This is an honest conversation. Jeff and I disagree on this. This is not an adversarial conversation, nor with you, the caller.
One of us is going to be right. We're going to have to figure that out at the end.
I love you. You're the best.
All right. Pain from arthritis is just awful. Bone on bone, constant pain. It robs you of so much of the stuff you love to do, but there are effective ways to deal with that pain. And I'm not talking about drugs or surgery. Listen, there's exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief, and the place to go is QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics uses cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. If you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery and pain pills are no longer the only option. I had a family member get knee surgery recently. 3 months just to get him back to where he can walk and enjoy life again. 3 months of lying around and dealing with that pain. Surgery should be the last resort. Check out QC Kinetics and learn how they can use advanced regenerative medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are ready to help you get your life back with regenerative, restorative, cellular treatments for your achy joints. This is the future of medicine. Call for a free consultation now, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Colorado Springs, and Highlands Ranch. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
The road is narrow, and if you're lukewarm, he'll spew you out.
Preach.
And secular opinions, and I agree with this, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. And I think it is Pope Francis, right? Not Pope Oprah, because Oprah said that, 15 years ago? I think. All right, 54 and sunny in Denver. It's just frustrating.
Blake, what are you saying about Oprah?
I'll stop now. Let's see, 54 degrees in Denver, expecting a high of 84. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, former President Trump will be rallying in New York tonight.
Despite the rally not taking place until tonight, Trump supporters started lining Hempstead Turnpike before sunrise. The Trump rally comes a few days after an apparent second assassination attempt on the former president in Florida. Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, he promises the Nassau Coliseum and surrounding area will be secure for the rally.
This is a small army of law enforcement professionals and first responders.
Police have set up designated areas for anti-Trump demonstrators to rally. Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
Meanwhile, Kamala Khan at the National Association of Black Journalists.
Do you have full confidence in the Secret Service to protect all of you?
I do.
You feel safe for you and your family?
I do. But, I mean, you can go back to Ohio. Not everybody.
What? You go back to Ohio.
Everybody has Secret Service.
What?
And there are far too many people in our country right now who are not feeling safe. I mean, I look at Project 2025 and I look at, like the Don't Say Gay laws coming out of Florida. Members of the LGBTQ community don't.
Are you serious? If there's one great place to live, if you're in the LGBTQ, RSTV, LMNOP, XYZ community, it's the United States of America, idiot.
Feel safe right now. Immigrants or people with an immigrant background don't feel safe right now.
Really? 20 million just walked across the border with confidence and definitely not a lot of gratitude among a lot of them. Give me a break.
Now, women don't feel safe right now.
Really? Whatever. Yeah. Women don't feel safe because they see illegals running around who may have escaped prisons in Venezuela.
And so, yes, I feel safe. I have Secret Service protection. But that doesn't change my perspective on the importance of fighting for the safety of everybody in our country.
Yeah, and she wants to take away your guns. Federal authorities are investigating after mail containing white powder was sent to state election offices across the U.S. Some offices were evacuated, but none of the mail turned out to be hazardous. The powder was sent to election offices in 17 states. A suspicious package was sent to the Colorado Secretary of State's office. It was intercepted at a mail facility Tuesday with a return address to the, quote, U.S. Trader Elimination Army, end of quote. Officials say it contained a white powder that turned out to be harmless. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold calls this unacceptable. All right. Those are the sounds you hear after Israel apparently intercepted pagers from Taiwan and detonated in the pockets of thousands of Hezbollah terrorists before they reached Lebanon. According to the New York Times, Israel tampered with the devices that Hezbollah ordered. They reportedly placed 2 ounces of explosive material next to the battery in each pager. Then a switch was also embedded that could be triggered remotely to detonate the explosives. The Times reported that Hezbollah fighters received a message at 3:30 Lebanon time, and it looked like it was coming from Hezbollah's leadership. When the message came through, there was a brief pause, and presumably so the fighters would raise the pagers toward their face before they detonated. Over 2,800 people were injured and 9 people were killed. And you can see the video. It is absolutely incredible. Amazing what they are able to do. One person is wounded following a shooting on a bus in Denver. Police say the victim was shot Tuesday on a bus near 15th and Tremont. The person was hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries. No arrests have been made. Crews continue to fight a wildfire in Larimer County. As of last night, the blaze is estimated to be 128 acres, and several evacuation orders remain in effect. The wildfire began burning on Monday, of course, in the Crystal Lakes area. Former Empire actor Jesse Smollett, remember him, the fraud? He's asking the Illinois Supreme Court to reverse his conviction for faking a hate crime in Chicago in 2019. Now he feels really safe. No, not safe. He's in danger. He did feel like he was in danger. Smollett appeared before the justices on Tuesday with his lawyers, who argued that a previous agreement with the Cook County State's attorney should have kept a trial from happening in the first place. All right, it's 52 in Lakewood, 51 in Broomfield, and 54 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on this Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunshine across the Denver metro, cooler, comfortable temps in the lower to mid-80s, cleared tonight, lows in the lower 50s. Mid-80s for Thursday and Friday, going to keep it dry as we round out the work week, lows in the lower to mid-50s. For the weekend, 70s on Saturday, rain showers developing, heavy rains possible through Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, let's continue the conversation. Is the Pope being loving to people when he says that God is a God for everyone? There are different ways to God. Or is he engaging in heresy? What do you think? Let's go to Glenn, Westminster. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. I'd like to go through one of the best parts of the Bible, as far as I'm concerned, was the thief on the cross.
Yes.
And one of the malefactors which hanged railed on him, saying, "If thou be the Christ, save thyself and us." But the other answering rebuked him, saying, "Don't thou fear God, seeing that thou art in the same condemnation? We indeed have justly, for we receive due reward for our deeds." But he said to the Christ, "Jesus, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise."
One of the most powerful moments in the Bible, for sure, because the thief didn't go through a catechism class. He wasn't baptized. He didn't join a small group. He didn't become a member of a church. He joined Christ in paradise because of his confession of faith in Christ.
Yeah, you could imagine, with all three of them up there in heavy pain, and dying in a slow, worst way you could imagine.
Yeah,
these guys probably weren't all that healthy to start with, and so he was going, but he must have been able to see Jesus, or he heard the soldiers talking down below too, because they were mocking Jesus, and so there was some conversation. But there turned to be a sanitarium. The general of the day, it stands for 100. So he had 100 soldiers. He was one that when he seen Jesus go through the whole thing and what he had said, when they were nailing him up there, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do."
Yeah.
And so that was because they were just hard-nosed. You could imagine the Roman soldiers. When the stone got rolled away, they were lucky that they weren't killed for that.
It was a remarkable day. You have Jesus Christ, perfect person, who pays the penalty for those of us that are being saved to be right with God. A perfect person, God on earth, has never broken with the Father. He and the Father are one. Remember, he says that. And then the Father turns away from him. That moment where he says, "Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus is experiencing the penalty of hell that we would experience ourselves, of being fully separated from God. We don't experience that on earth. That's what you experience in hell, when that full separation. And Christ experienced that on our behalf. And then because of that sacrifice, that thief, there's nothing that thief did to get to heaven. It was because of that sacrifice that Christ went through, that guy hanging on a cross next to him gets to be in paradise that day.
The thing that's really powerful for me all the time is words like belief. what a belief is such a big word. You need a dictionary for the word itself. I mean, it's well, let's say you had a big bowl full of ants crawling around, and you were throwing them a little sugar now and then, and they keep going. You give them a little water, and then why would you be concerned of what they believe or what they think, whether they thought well of you or terrible of you? I mean, when you're in the God position, well, the whole thing about God too is so big that it's kind of hard to discuss anyhow.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
And when you're talking about the ants, I think there's another layer where rather than just gathering the bowl of ants, I think it would be more analogous to talk about God building the ants, or building small, like remote control cars, or building small autonomous robots, or, it's the idea that he is our creator. And that's why he's invested in what we are doing in our belief systems and in our lives, because we are his creation, rather than just gathering up something that is out there and then just monitoring it and taking a look at it. And I think that's why God is more involved in our lives than just the person that is watching the ant farm through the glass and providing them with the sugar and the water. But it's an opinion.
There's the thing that always kind of wakes me out is the technology science that we have now. They went up to Bennu, who was a little tiny asteroid out of the asteroid belt that they had seen from before. Were interested in it for some reason. He was only 500 feet across, and he didn't have much gravity. They didn't know exactly how that was going to go. They were going to reach in with a robot arm. They were going to set off a small explosion. Then they were going to pick up a bunch of dust and dirt and put that and send that back to northwestern Utah in the desert. They dropped it out there. So they've got that. They got a good treatment of it because they were kind of scared their arm would get caught. But they said it acted like it was reaching into water because the gravity is so slight. It just barely holds anything together. So it operated a lot different than they thought. And a little tiny explosion, when they came by the next day, and took a good look at it. But
Glenn,
they
really
can do stuff that sounds like magic. I wouldn't believe it. It was on TV. It's God mixed in there too.
Yeah, Glenn, I really appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Glenn's line will be open 303-696-1971. Getting text messages here from my Catholic friends saying, I'm coming home. You're right there, Jeff. Come on home.
No, you're not. And that's from a Catholic. No, you're not. And I respect that.
Still a protester.
The thing is, and I respect that to the depths of my heart and soul about you, that you are so convicted in your religion, that you're so decided on the path, being the Reformed Calvinist, because there's so many people that question the belief and question God. And I'm broken as far as my faith, but I have a very strong faith. I understand that I'm deeply flawed, and I'm always trying to be better. And your assurance, your belief structure is something that I definitely admire, because I'm not as always as strong in my faith as you are. I got a hell of a long list of questions, but it doesn't mean
well, you
I'm
can
not a
thank
believer.
my parents in 7 years of undergrad and grad school they paid for me to go explore this stuff.
Nicely
done.
done.
No, I appreciate that. And Billy and I, we have our differences, and what I love about it, and I actually really like people that believe deeply in something, and want to discuss it in a way that's not hateful or harmful.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was at the DNC, and I talked to a Palestinian who said, well, no. The whole reason we're here is for Islamic supremacy. And I was like, tell me about that.
Yeah, that's new. Most you don't say that out loud.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, no, we believe that Islam's the one true religion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I believe Christianity is the one true religion.
Yeah.
So tell me about the world I get to live in if Islam's the one true religion.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're in control, is there a democracy? And he said, no. Okay. So what happens to the Christians and Jews? Well, you guys will be allowed to live.
Yeah.
Allowed to live. But we'll have no role in any type of government leadership. And then I was like, okay, well, how about the LGBTQ community and abortion? He's like, oh yeah, those aren't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa. But there was like a refreshingness to talk to somebody who's like, This is where I plant my flag.
Yeah.
This is what I believe is true. This is the direction we're going to go in, as opposed to this just kind of like, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out eventually.
And it's like the anti-Zionist Jews that you talk to as well, the Jewish people of the faith that thought we shouldn't be in Israel, because they were dispersed. And by having an actual nation, you are violating the word of God. And until the Jewish nation is dispersed around the entire planet, we can't have God return, and we can't have that closure. Yeah, oh, wow.
Suzanne thinks I'm too dogmatic. I'm turning people off, but I'm getting you to think, Suzanne.
Yeah, that's the thing.
All right. For many of us, it's happening. Your hair is thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Well, I've got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class, Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. Ron, you're up next. We have an open line, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
President Donald Trump should have the opportunity starting on Thursday to sell his shares in Trump Media and Technology Group, the company behind the president's social media platform, Truth Social. The former president owns a 57% stake in the company that's worth around $2 billion. Trump and other insiders in the company, known as TMTG, have been unable to cash in because a lockup agreement has prevented them from selling any of their shares since TMTG started trading publicly back in March. For now, Trump says he's not selling. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says law enforcement officials in his state will launch their own criminal investigation into the second assassination attempt on President Donald Trump that will run parallel to the federal probe. Governor DeSantis making the announcement this week, saying that Florida prosecutors will pursue the most serious charges available under state law, including attempted murder, in the state-level investigation into Ryan Ruth.
We're in a great situation to be able to look at this with clear eyes, get answers, and then deliver those answers to the public. I don't think anyone can honestly claim that the federal government has been forthright and transparent about its past investigations. That's just the reality. That's just how these guys operate. Apart from any type of political bias, that's how it's been really for many, many years.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Weil, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Because the phone lines are hot, we'll continue the conversation. The Pope making an interesting statement over the weekend that all religions are paths to reach God.
I know.
There are different ways to God. Huh. Now, as a guy who grew up Catholic, I'm like, that's not what I heard from my priest.
I love how you made those questions. It's so good, so good. And I know you diverge from it where, and again, I come from the idea, and we've talked about it, where I believe that there are many paths to the top of the mountain and the view always looks the same. But there are some questions, and yes, there are some constraints on that path. It doesn't mean where I diverge from the Pope is all paths. I do not believe all paths do lead to the top of the mountain, but I do believe there are many.
If all religions are there, Scientology, Satanism,
then what are we doing about that?
How about
the
original LDS stuff? That original LDS.
Oh yeah,
stuff
and that,
where,
the
like,
cannabis
they
church
marry
that
12-year-olds.
Francis talked about. That's the
Yeah,
weird part.
right,
Yeah,
the Church of Cannabis.
I can't imagine that you go up there and that Jesus is going to be sitting there and he's going to look like Snoop Dogg with like a chain and a pot leaf on it and stuff, and he's going to be holding the bong and he's like, "Hey, I bless you." There with the smoke. I can't imagine that's going to happen. That's not it. It's not. We're not using pot smoke. We're using incense. It's a different type of smoke, people. Different type of smoke.
And you end up in contradictions too that are important to work out.
Yes.
So, Suzanne and I are having an interesting text message here because, is there one God? Are there hundreds of gods? Yeah. You can't have both of those at the same time. Logically,
no, you can't.
You cannot have those at the same time.
No.
So you got to work these out. And I just think we as a culture have lost this ability to debate this stuff.
I would agree.
Right? Like, this is important things.
Yeah,
why can't we talk about them? Because I think we start throwing rocks at each other.
And again, that's why we're different. That's what we wanted to do when we started the show.
Let's go to Ron Greeley. Good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, good morning, and congratulations on being born again. That is the most wonderful feeling, isn't it?
It's something I'll never forget. I got hit. I was out at a Young Life camp, and I just said, "God, I'm doing all this partying without you, and it's not working. I'm incredibly lonely. The alcohol doesn't numb it. The pot doesn't numb it. The girlfriends don't numb it. I can't figure it out. Can you just please help me?" And then I walked in.
And that feeling that you got was like no other, huh?
I walk into a room and they're singing, "He came from heaven to earth to show you the way." And I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. And it felt like this old, busted heart got replaced with a brand new heart. And I was filled with a joy that I'll never be able to describe again. And it changed my entire life. So
Praise God. Praise God. That is fantastic. One thing, for many will come in my name and try to deceive you, right? That's what he says. And that is what's been happening. We're in the end of times. There's going to be confusion. They're talking more and more about aliens. Anything that they can do to take your mind away from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, they will do. And the Pope is just adding to that.
My heart gets frustrated because I feel like he's adding to confusion to that point. And Ron, I'm dealing with a lot of text messages here, but one thing I've noticed is that there's this kind of personal vitriol towards even just trying Jesus out. Okay, so what did I just say? Like, I just said I tried him out and he changed my life. So why not? What would prevent somebody else from just trying it out? Why not?
The prison cells are full of believers because it's almost like they're forced. They're not forced, but it seems like that because they're bored. What do? They turn to the Bible. When they start reading the Bible, and this is anywhere. Once you start reading it, it connects to you. It wakes you up. It gives you a feeling that you've never had. And to talk about the Lord and Savior is the best thing. And the people, when you ask them, you see celebrities all the time when they're questioned, hey, well, so what do you think of the Lord? Oh, hey, I've got to go. Come on, guys, this isn't the time to bring it up. There's never a wrong time to bring up the Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
It's always a good time. What you guys are doing is fantastic. I appreciate you bringing light to this. It is, it's powerful. It's absolutely powerful, guys. And I'm emotional. I got to go. You guys are fantastic. Love you guys.
Hey, Ron, thank you, man. Your comments there made me emotional, man. That was really special. That was really sweet. Thank you.
Man, we got the best listeners.
Yeah, we do. And I appreciate all of our listeners coming on this journey with us because we know it is complicated, we know it is difficult, and we know it is incredibly unusual, not only just in Denver, but in Colorado and across the nation. Jeff and I understand that we are carving a path that most shows are afraid to, and we're going to address things openly, honestly, and we are going to find agreement and disagreement where they are. I still love Jeff, even though he's part of a cult. I say that only because I am a Catholic. That's the only reason, and I only say that to people that I admire and respect.
We have fun.
Yes, we do.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us about Balanced Well Space?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about something that, okay, I was going to make a religious reference there that just was totally inappropriate. So we're just going to go forward with this one. I got to tell you about a group of individuals that are taking away my pain. And I'm not talking about, again, the religious side of things. I'm talking about that physical pain. I thought I was getting to an age in which I was waking up and everything was going to hurt. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how much was it going to hurt that day. And I know that you're living your life the same way, but I want you to meet the team that has made a tremendous difference in my life. It's Balanced Well Space. They have some brand new offices here in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, plenty of parking. Check them out at balancedwellspace.com. What makes them different? Integrative medicine. I didn't know what that meant until I started working with them. Integrative medicine means that the wide variety of treatments that can help you feel better are all there under one roof. Imagine that. I know that you have different appointments throughout the week and throughout the month where you're going to different healthcare providers, and they can be helping you out, sure, but how much easier would it be for you and your life? How much better could your treatment be if it was one team together talking about you and working to get you pain-free? That's the difference at Balanced Well Space. Check them out at balancedwellspace.com, balancedwellspace.com. In one office there in Lowry, you can get chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and so much more. Plus, they have a whole bunch of non-invasive, cutting-edge modalities that are absolutely fantastic. But again, non-invasive. They are helping me regenerate the discs in my lower back right now. Two of my vertebrae are fusing together. We're working on that. As I sit here, I have a knee brace on that is helping me regenerate the torn meniscus in my left knee. My left knee used to be my weak knee. It's now my strong knee. That's incredible. I am living pain-free for the first time in at least 15 years minimum. In some areas, it's 2 decades since I have felt this good. And I want them to make the same change in your life they've made in mine. But if you do not contact them, they can't do it. Now, here's the thing is, this is a team that puts together a custom pain plan just for you. They talk to you, they find out what you're doing, what you're not doing, and your goals. Then they do all the testing. Then they get to work. They put together a custom pain plan focused on your needs and your goals. And then every couple of weeks, they reevaluate your progress. When's the last time your medical team got together to discuss you and only you? Jeff and I could sit here for the next hour and there wouldn't be any answer because they don't. That's what makes Balanced Well Space different. Check out my friends, Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, B, Sarah, Christy, the entire team there are spectacular, but most importantly, they are focused on you and making sure you feel better. I want you to stop living your life in pain. I want you to get back to doing the stuff that you've prevented yourself from doing for maybe months, maybe years. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm not living that way anymore, and you don't either. But it doesn't start until you contact Balanced Well Space. Balancedwellspace.com, balancedwellspace.com. I want you to experience the pain-free life that I am, courtesy of their medical team. Give them a call. Check them out, balancedwellspace.com. And do me a favor, tell them you heard about them here on Jeff and Bill. It really helps us out.
Great to hear, Billy. We'll continue. Frank, you'll be up next. We do have an open phone line, 303-696-1971, or text the Dan Caplis text line. Comes right in here to the studio, 720-819-5115. Let me know what you think of our conversation. One text message here. I'm isolating myself with my dogmatic views. Do you agree with that?
Ooh,
love to hear from you all. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Two things that hit a family budget the hardest: the price of gas and of groceries. Let us ease that pain at the pump when you enter the $18,000 gas and groceries giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gift cards for gas and groceries. 3 first prize winners each get $1,000 gift cards, and 10 second prize winners will get $500 gift cards for gas and groceries. That's $18,000 total.
For complete details, go to 710knus.com.
Man, I like Caldera. Always fun to listen to on the weekends. Let's go to Frank Evergreen. Good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk at 710 AUS.
Yeah, good morning, guys. For a couple of months, I've listened to that accident. Just got out of the hospital, but I'm pretty amazed. In that 2 months, you guys have converted from being the anti-Trump network to being a 700 Club. What happened? I missed something. Yeah.
Our hair's not good enough to be on the 700 Club yet.
Yeah, no way.
PTL, man.
Frank, are you doing okay? I'm sorry to hear about the accident.
Worried about that, man.
Yeah, well, I'm getting better. I've got another month or two before I'm back. So I'm on short-term disability right now, but I'll be back in another month or two. We'll see. But thanks. I appreciate the good thoughts. But go ahead.
Oh, please go ahead.
I do have one real personal experience. Scientists have recently, and this is not just recently, but it's been going on for some years now, have identified, that there is something real between life and death. There's, spirit activity, et cetera. I don't know if you mentioned this already, but I have something very real in that regard. About a year ago, I was sitting in my lazy chair. My wife was about 10 feet away from me. And I went into what the best thing I can explain was it was like a seizure where I couldn't talk, couldn't listen, couldn't understand what people were saying to me. And it lasted for about 5 minutes. And make a long story short, turns out my best friend of 50 years was about 5 miles away from me. And at that precise moment, he committed suicide. And all we can figure out is he was trying to communicate with me. That's a very real story. I mean, there's no reason I would lie about something like that. But the first person, I was hesitant to even tell anybody, but my wife was sitting there and she experienced it with me. And
did you get a sense of what he was communicating?
No idea, really. All I know is it was very real. There was nothing, real I could understand or anything. But first person I told about it was another good friend. I was expecting him to tell me I was a kook. He said, "Your other friend must have had a really strong spirit." And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing.
I've seen lots of videos of people that work in hospice, and they'll say almost to a T that as that person reaches the very end of their life, there's a very strong presence that there's other people in the room with them, which is
amazing.
Which is just amazing. Yeah.
Firsthand.
Wow.
So what happened to the Trump bashing network today? Are they gone? Oh, they coming back?
Well, see, the thing is, Frank,
wait about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and Bill will get back to it.
Yeah, we will. We'll get back to it in a little bit. And the issue is that today I took the entire blue pill, so that's the issue, man. So I'm on full medication today, and I appreciate that you're getting better, and I do believe that there is a connection between our temporal world and the spiritual world. I mean, I've had people in my family that have experienced absolute miracles. There's no other way to describe this, and also messages from people that are recently passed or passing. I have a couple of people in my circle that have experienced not the seizure type of it, but that idea of absolutely there was a message being delivered at the time the person was passing. And many times it is through tragedy. So I absolutely validate what you experienced, man.
Frank, really appreciate the call. Frank from Evergreen.
Yeah, thank you.
So coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, Brad Yellin with United Hatzalah. That's the emergency organization in like the little ambulances in Israel is going to be joining us. Give us an update on how things are going in Israel. You're not going to want to miss that conversation. And Taylor Swift and Donald Trump. We'll get back to the nitty gritty here. Yeah. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, September 18th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. Waking up in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts to the Dan Caplis text line, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up a little bit later in the hour, Brad Yellin, West Coast Regional Director of United Hatzalah. These are like the little emergency ambulances and scooters that race into danger in Israel to save people's lives. They don't ask if you're Jew or Palestinian. They just save lives. Try to help people there. And they have gotten the response time down to just a mere matter of minutes because they've empowered a network of volunteers across Israel. It's really remarkable. I'd love to see it here in America. Brad Yellin's going to join us. Give us an update on how things are going in Israel, especially after yesterday.
Yeah, they're probably not.
Holy
I'm
cow.
just saying that Hatzalah is probably not using pagers. I'm just saying.
Right.
Too soon? Was that joke too soon?
And do you have the medical experience to care for where those explosions took place?
Exactly. Yes. How do you tie a tourniquet down there? I have no idea.
Wild yesterday as thousands of pagers went off that were laced with explosive devices because Israel found a way to interrupt that process and get explosives there, and a whole bunch of Hezbollah terrorists.
Yeah, and it was the Hezbollah terrorists because they had eschewed cell phones because Israel had hacked into the network earlier, not like last week or so. This is months and months and months ago. They had hacked into the network and they saw that not only their calls but their communications as far as text messages and even geolocating was all being hacked. And so they threw away the cell phones and they went old school. They went to pagers, and then Israel found a way to hijack the shipment of the pagers. It was coming from Taiwan, load about 2 ounces of plastic explosives into it, along with a trigger that could respond to a command, and then let them sit until the very right moment. And yesterday, they pushed the button. And again, I am having a lot of schadenfreude on this because these are people that are involved in terrorist activities. They want things like this to happen. They want other people to be injured, especially Jewish people. And to have them be visited by their own means of destruction, the idea of these attacks through explosives that are very personal. Yes, please.
Very personal.
Please.
So that's, They had their wieners blown off.
Exactly.
It was, there's a middle school element to this as well.
Yes, there is.
Like, oh my gosh.
I know. And imagine the idea of that meeting that would have to go on, that you're sitting there, and you're sitting there in the secret meeting, like, well, what do we do? They're going to pagers. We're going to pagers. What if we make them blow up?
Right.
Hang on. Let's explore that for a minute. I mean, that's a fun conversation.
And then pause so that people pick them up and then blow them off.
Yes.
And then I guess the message that was sent to them was, enjoy your 72 virgins.
You're awful, and I love you for it. That is fantastic.
All right. We'll get to that and more. Plus, Taylor Swift, Donald Trump, the drama continues. What do you think of Donald Trump saying, just tweeting out very directly, I hate Taylor Swift?
Ouch. Oh boy. What has he unleashed? What has he unleashed?
Is he gonna help, hurt? Is he taking on a sacred cow?
Yeah, here's the thing is we going back to our last hour and the previous hour conversation. I just want to put this on the table before we get to Blake Olson's news and commentary. Our Lord and Savior has mercy. Swifties do not. Just remember that.
That is great, Bill. All right, let's check in on news and commentary with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. That is so true, Billy. Can't agree with you more. 63 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 84 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the Fed is widely expected to make a rate cut for the first time in more than 4 years. The announcement will come at the end of its 2-day policy meeting later today. The central bank is expected to lower rates by at least 0.25 percentage point up to 0.5 percentage point. 100 U.S. Army soldiers are reportedly being deployed to Alaska's Aleutian Islands. This comes following multiple sightings of Russian military aircraft near Alaska's airspace. Senator Dan Sullivan says the Russian military incursions into the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone, or U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone, have occurred on 5 separate occasions in the past 7 days. Former President Trump is set to hold a rally in New York with heightened security measures after another attempt on his life last weekend. Meanwhile, Kamala Khan will deliver remarks at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute's annual leadership conference in D.C. And by the way, Hispanics leaning more and more toward the Trumpster, Fox News Channel.
The Democrat, usually it's, how much are they eroding the lead of Hispanic voters? But he's ahead with Hispanic voters in Pennsylvania. I don't know how large, of a voter group that is in Pennsylvania.
No, it's a really interesting trend that we're starting to see. More and more Hispanic voters are going for Donald Trump. In many ways, what I've heard from them, and we had a couple voters in our focus groups who were talking about how unfair the immigration system seems to be, that they came in the right way and people are coming in the wrong way, that for them to come to America, it was about opportunity and not handouts. Now they feel like people are coming in, opening up their hands and getting free iPhones, free places to stay. And it just isn't the American dream that they felt was created for them. And that's not what they want to see happening to America. And so I think you might be seeing that play out a little bit in these polls.
Yep, I can think of a few myself. Federal authorities are investigating after mail containing white powder was sent to state election offices across the U.S. Some offices were evacuated, but none of the mail turned out to be hazardous. The powder was sent to election offices in 17 states. A suspicious package was sent to the Colorado Secretary of State's office. It was intercepted at a mail facility Tuesday with a return address to the U.S. Trader Elimination Army. Officials say it contained a white powder that turned out to be harmless. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold calls this unacceptable. Crews continue to fight the wildfire in Larimer County. As of last night, the blaze is estimated to be 128 acres, and several evacuation orders remain in effect. There are reports of more device explosions in Lebanon happening today. This comes a day after pagers belonging to Hezbollah members exploded and killed at least a dozen people. Remember what Kamala Khan said last week? Now, on this video, if you get a chance, you need to see it. She's on the left, split screen, and then reality is on the right side. You'll hear that in this clip right here.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
Representative Jim Banks obtained the video of our troops overseas, and she, once again, wants to be the commander-in-chief. Hey, here's Billie Eilish. I know, it's Billie Eilish.
Today is National Voter Registration Day, and we are asking you to please join us in going to iwillvote.com to check your status and vote early like we do.
We are voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
No way.
They are fighting to protect our reproductive freedom, our planet, and our democracy.
Yes.
We can't let extremists control our lives, our freedoms, and our future.
God, it just never changes Hollywood. 58 in Castle Pines, 59 in Louisville, and 63 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Hump Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunshine across the Denver metro, cooler, comfortable temps in the lower to mid-80s, clear tonight, lows in the lower 50s. Mid-80s for Thursday and Friday, going to keep it dry as we round out the work week, lows in the lower to mid-50s. For the weekend, 70s on Saturday, rain showers developing, heavy rains possible through Sunday. Weather brought to you by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us a little bit later in the hour is Brad Yellin, West Coast Regional Director at United Hatzalah of Israel. They were the first responders, especially after that October 7th attack that saved hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. They're always there to respond. It's a network of volunteers with medical training throughout Israel. And whether it's a heart attack or you need an aspirin or a terrorist attack, they run into and help their neighbors. It's really a remarkable organization that they've built. So it'll be joining us a little bit later.
It is really remarkable because, remember, this is the point in which tragedy is striking and things are chaotic and they run towards the chaos.
That's exactly right.
That's how different these people are in the commitment they've made, not just to the Jewish citizens, but to life regardless of who's being injured.
They're not
That is
asking what your religious beliefs are.
Yep, that is remarkable.
Bill, in light of the fact that now walkie-talkies are blowing up.
Yes, the hell, but okay. That's
I
interesting.
imagine that Hezbollah, I can only see them all of a sudden now turn and look at their television, look at their computer, look at their gaming system,
Yep,
and
anything.
just go back away slowly.
And I think that psychologically is the largest advantage that Israel has just gained with these attacks is now it's the idea of I can touch you anywhere.
The webcam, the earbuds.
Yep, anything. Yeah. And it's not just the idea that, we could just lob missiles and take out entire city blocks. We could take out entire apartment complexes, or we could personally identify you and hurt you individually. And the idea that they follow up the day after with an attack with the walkie-talkies, because remember, what has Hezbollah done in the last 24 hours? We will take revenge on the Jews because of this. Push a button again. Boom. Okay. Have fun. So now they have to be going through their mind. Again, like you said, what else could possibly be wired?
Do you remember, was it Syria or Iran where they spun up the centrifuges?
Syria. No, Iran. I believe
Was it Iran?
Yeah, it was Iran. Yeah.
Israel's ability to get you when they're not even in the room with you.
Yeah.
Without firing a shot or a missile.
Yeah.
So if you remember this, there were a series of centrifuges, and Israel was able to work with the So this was a series of computers that weren't connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So you couldn't hack them. And they worked with the computer manufacturer to put in a virus that would allow Israel to spin up the centrifuges, and its safety control mechanisms would not kick in, so the things would self-destruct.
Yeah.
So Israel essentially sabotaged Iran's nuclear capabilities without ever being connected to the internet, without setting foot in Iran, without having James Bond put a little device on the little centrifuge. None of all that. They did that purely via code from far away.
And think about if you are in the position of Iran or Hezbollah or any of the other terrorist organizations or nations, how that makes you feel unsecure when you have certain security protocols in place and they don't matter. The idea that Hezbollah had gone to walkie-talkies and pagers was because they were worried about the security of the cell phones. didn't matter.
Typewriters and homing pigeons now.
Oh, exactly. They're gonna have to go back to Sanskrit and the cuneiform and doing stuff in tablets. And that's okay. We're okay with that one.
It's impressive. Hey, I want to tell you about my friend Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade now. Dan's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because who you choose as a lawyer should represent your values. You get a guy that because you saw his picture on the side of a billboard go by, well, you're going to send a message to everybody in the courtroom about your values and who you trust to represent you. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. You're probably saying, well, that means that Dan is very expensive. I'll never be able to afford him. Not true. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. Something else that's coming across the X's here is that cops have found explosives in a car attempting to enter Trump's rally on Long Island. K-9 units detected the explosives and the suspect ran away on foot.
Wow.
This comes just 3 days after a second assassination attempt on his life in Florida. Charlie Kirk, who's on right after us, is just posted that 30
I'm sure
minutes
he's going to
ago.
talk about it. And this is a shout out to a friend of the show, Iggy, because it was after the previous assassination attempt, we were chatting on Monday, that Iggy was talking about the idea that now that we have 2, does it open the floodgates as far as, okay, these are acceptable targets now? And so, again, we don't know the history or what was going on with this car and this set of explosives, but was this person thinking of X, Y, or Z and thought, hey, now Trump and or Harris are legit targets, and this is a way that I can show the world how mad I am or how they need to listen to what I'm saying. Yeah, this is interesting. This is going to be crazy.
They need to get a hold of this.
Yes, they do.
Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's administration, because they are very quickly pushing. I mean, Bill, what happens if Donald Trump's assassinated?
The Republicans take the White House. Hands down. There's no question. Hands down.
You think so?
Absolutely.
And you don't, do you think there will be, I mean, do you expect Republicans and conservatives to just go, wow, that's shocking? Do you think there could be uprising?
Again, what would be the uprising? Who will you fight? That's the thing that's the thing I always ask is we have people that listen to the show and they call and they say, we are so close to another civil war. I always ask, okay, you have picked up your firearm. Who are you going to shoot? Because I think that the people that say this is going to be an uprising or a civil war haven't thought about the next step, that in order to accomplish that, you have to target someone. So who is it? Are you going to go through your neighborhood and start shooting Democrats? Are you going to, the thing for me is if I was Kamala Harris today, and this is a legit attack at a Trump rally, I would be reaching out to the Trump campaign and asking if we could do a co-branded 30-second PSA where we stand together and say we disagree on the issues, but this is not okay. As both the Democrat and Republican nominee for president, these actions are not okay with anybody and will be prosecuted to the first extent of the law. And do that. A 30-second of them just standing next to it. They don't have to say, I agree with you, I agree with you. They just need to be here and say, we have differences, but those aren't differences that are solved with bullets.
You want to talk about a real threat to democracy?
Yes.
It's this type of stuff. You end up with one of the major candidates on either party dying during a heated presidential race because some lunatic clicked off a car bomb or shot his AK-47 or whatever it was. That's a real threat to democracy. And I think we talked about this on Monday. This is, for me, the incompetence of the Biden-Harris campaign or administration, but our government needs to get really serious about making sure that this type of violence doesn't take place.
And this is where I come down, and I'm a little bit different from you, but I can see your perspective and why you have the critique of the Biden-Harris administration. It's a fair critique. I look at it as a larger symptomatic problem in our society where we now have come to a place where violence is speech, and that your ability to act out violently is viewed as if it is your right to free speech. And that is a really, really scary place for us to go as a society, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because you and you brought this up on Monday, out of frustration, these folks are going to schools.
Yep.
They're going to movie theaters.
Yeah.
They're going to political rallies now, all to make their voices heard and to hurt people. It's terrible. All right. With all the work I've had done to my teeth, believe me, finding a good dentist makes all the difference. I'd like to tell you about Dr. Mike at Rocky Mountain Dental Group. He helps people like you and me look and feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. I've been going there for over 20 years. Dr. Mike and his entire staff are outstanding. I like the fact that the same person always cleans my teeth. If you need an awesome dentist, Dr. Mike is your guy. If your gums are receding, it's critical to address the issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The procedure involves making a small hole in the tissue and gently repositioning of the gums. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike to discover the benefits of this revolutionary procedure. Call 303-233-1335 or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. That's RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. Dr. Mike, believe me, I've spent a lot of time with dentists. He's the real deal when it comes to quality and care and compassion for his patients. RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. All right, should we go to the phone lines?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nancy, Aurora, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Nancy.
Morning.
Good morning. I want to tell you that first 2 hours was just wonderful. I learned so much from it, but that's not what I'm calling about. I'm calling about if Trump is taken out, would J.D. Vance be the only candidate for president on the Republican side?
Yeah, I don't know. Bill and I were talking about that the other day. I'm not sure he could carry the top of the ticket. He was not my pick for vice president either. I liked Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't know about the Republican bylaws. I know the ballots have already been printed. They're about to go out. I'm not sure they could change it at that point. So it might be that you have to elect Trump Vance, and then you get a Vance whoever.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier, Nancy, and I think this is a great question because what would be the mechanism, and I don't know, like Jeff does, what the bylaws say about if it happens during an election cycle, what happens to the vice presidential nominee? How do you choose a potential replacement? My guess would be that based on timing and everything else, Vance would ascend to the top of the ticket, and it creates some more complexities there because then you get into the idea of him being chosen, not voted for, chosen, not nominated, which was some of the critique on Harris on the other side. But I think that just based on if Nancy, Jeff, and I, we were all sitting in the room and it was up to us after something horribly tragic happened to Donald Trump and we decided what the path forward would be for the party, I think the path of least resistance, I'm not saying the best or the one that is that's in the bylaws, but the path of least resistance is to put J.D. Vance at the top of the ticket. I think that would make the most sense. Again, given the time frame of what we're dealing with right now as far as how close the election is. But what do you think would happen?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I've been thinking about it, wondering about it, and I thought, well, you guys would know. And can we get Randy Corcoran to call in? And
yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
he would know as an attorney and someone as the national committee man.
That would be great if he could give us a heads up on this because it's just a mystery to me.
And Nancy, I got a question for you on this one. Do you think, as a friend of the show, Iggy, outlined earlier on Monday, because we've had 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life, do you think this now has told those people that are unhinged, that want to act out this way, that our presidential candidates or even our president is a viable target. What I mean is, do you think we will see an increase of these attacks in the future?
I think it's possible. I'm hoping not, but my feeling beginning with his campaign was that he would be a target and there would be attempts on his life, and it has come to pass.
Yep.
And I'm not happy about that.
I mean, it's incredibly frustrating, Nancy. And I'm afraid we have crossed that Rubicon where political targets are now going to be the new school shootings. And, I remember how shocking Columbine was and how this had never really happened before. And now it seems like every year we got to continue to deal with people that want to harm innocent people in order to fulfill whatever bizarre, satanic, demonic things going on in their lives. And now they see they can get a lot of attention at these political rallies. Nancy, really appreciate your call. Thanks so much. I want to talk to you all about Colorado's best roofing. If you're like me, you know that Colorado and living here means dealing with unpredictable weather, hail, snow, heavy winds, you name it, we got it. That's why you need a roofing company you can trust, and that's Colorado's Best Roofing. They're local, family-owned, and have served the Denver area for over 12 years. They understand our unique climate and know how to build a roof that lasts. Whether you need a repair after a storm or a whole new roof, Colorado's Best Roofing has got you covered. And here's what I really love. They offer a free, no-obligation inspection. They'll come out, take a look, and give you an honest assessment. No pressure, no gimmicks, just straight talk from the pros. Plus, they work with your insurance company to make sure you get the coverage you deserve. So don't wait until the next big storm hits. They do small repairs. They do entire roof replacements. Give Colorado's Best Roofing a call today at 303-797-7663 or visit them at roofingcolorado.com. That's 303-797-7663 or roofingcolorado.com. Trust the best, Colorado's Best Roofing. Let's go to Jim. Line 2, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Jim.
Morning, Jim.
Good morning, gentlemen. I am just going to say that when the first attempt happened, several of the news media were minimizing the threat of the assassination. Some of them even said it was a fake or a false flag, that Trump had worked this out in order to get sympathy and gain votes. I heard that on some of the media saying that we don't even know if this really happened, stuff like that. I think our media has done so much damage to our republic. There are people that listen to them all the time and believe all the lies that they say, and they act on it. You have unstable people out there. And I think that's what's going on right now. All the crazies are coming out thinking they become famous. And I really fear somebody's going to be successful in this, thinking that they're going to get their name, they're going to get their fame. And there's a certain group, and we know, out there in the media that actually are applauding this. And they're high-profile people. I just think they've gone down a road that is a dark hole, and it's going to cause us problems way down in the future.
Yeah, I think they've painted themselves into a corner. They won't talk about it publicly. But we raised this question on Monday after the last assassination attempt. Do you think that the media, do you think that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are okay with Donald Trump continuing to live? Do you think they really want to stop him from dying?
Unfortunately, I think there is a segment of our population that wants Trump dead. And I think that some of them are in our media. And they have been very vocal about their vitriol about this candidate. And it's done inconsiderable damage that I'm afraid we'll never come back from. I mean, once you get down to this road of like, hey, it's okay to attempt to assassinate any candidate, we have gone to a level we've never been. And I really
I do think we've been here
really
before, and it was during a civil war, unfortunately, and that's what I do not want for this country. Jim, I really appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Coming up after the break, you're going to join us as we talk with Brad Yellin with United Hatzalah. This is the great ambulance organization in Israel. He's going to give us an update on how things are going over there. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Elon Musk posting to X that Hillary Clinton's comments on possibly putting people in jail for spreading misinformation are very troubling. Clinton making the statements on MSNBC. Take a listen.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
She failed, however, to explain who would determine what is classified as misinformation. The former chief of police for Uvalde schools in Texas made his first court appearance on criminal charges that accuse him of failing to take sufficient action during the Robb Elementary School shooting back in 2022. Pete Arredondo has pleaded not guilty to multiple counts of child endangerment and abandonment, with his attorney arguing that his actions were not criminally negligent. Another former Uvalde school police officer, Adrian Gonzalez, faces similar charges and pleaded not guilty during a court hearing back in July. Family members of some of the victims were at the pretrial hearing, where another court hearing was scheduled for later this year. With accusations over support for in vitro fertilization quickly becoming a hot topic as we head into this year's presidential election, the Senate is holding a vote this week that some are calling political theater.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Weil, Salem News Channel.
Well, it's a wild time for Hezbollah. And I couldn't think of a more timely guest to have in studio than Brad Yellin. He's West Coast Regional Director of United Hatzalah of Israel. Now, what's unique about United Hatzalah, and their website is israelrescue.org, they're not getting into the war. That's not their business. They're simply saving lives. He's swinging through town. Stop by the studio. Brad, good to see you. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Great to see you, Jeff.
So give us Gentiles an update of how things are going in Israel.
Well, you know, it's tough in the north. You can imagine all these people being not in their homes and whatnot. I mean, in the U.S., imagine, okay, just a small part of the U.S., you know, New Mexico, Arizona, everyone can't live there because there's missiles coming in. And then all those people finding other places to live within the country, and they can't be in their home. They can't function for their schooling, for their, you know, regular routine of life. So this isn't something that, you know, can't maintain itself. And I think most of Israelis are resigned to a likely outcome of there's going to be something happening in the north probably sometime soon.
Well, what I appreciate about your organization is people have lots of very passionate opinions on what's happening in Israel between Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran. But with United Hatzalah, y'all don't get into that. You're about saving lives. So you kind of transcend a lot of those issues so people can support United Hatzalah. And I'd be happy to buy bullets for Israel, but I know not everybody is willing to do that. Tell folks what United Hatzalah does and how they can get involved in your organization.
Sure. We're an organization that are first responders in Israel, medics. All the medics are volunteers. They work as lawyers and plumbers, electricians, even garbage men, doctors. And they are trained as EMTs, as emergency medic responders, and they are ready to go all hours of the day. And if someone has a medical emergency or if a missile comes in, you know, we're there to respond. But we've totally innovated and disrupted the emergency response operation by using an Uber-like response. So we've taken a typical medical response of 8 to 20 minutes and we've turned it into 90 seconds. So we're able to show up. Someone has a kid that's choking or someone has a cardiac arrest. Time is absolutely of the essence, and 8 minutes is way too long. So we've figured out ways to come much quicker.
And because think about what we have to do in America here. All right. So somebody, God forbid, in our office has a medical emergency. I've got to call 911. That goes to a dispatch center. They then have to figure out what the emergency is and who to dispatch. Is it police? Is it firefighters? Is it paramedics? They then have to contact that organization, the paramedics, for instance. Paramedics have to figure out who's in the area. They have to then contact them. They then have to figure out where the emergency is happening. They then got to drive the emergency vehicle over here. That's why you're looking at 8 to 10, 15 minutes for a medical emergency response. How does United Hatzalah do it?
You know, we have just a direct communication for any medical emergency. Within 3 to 5 seconds, we know exactly where that emergency is, and we know where all of our medics are through GPS. So within seconds, the 5 closest people to that emergency will be notified, and say 3 typically will say, I'm on it, and merge onto that call.
Because imagine you're working at home and granted, Israel's more of an urban community than necessarily a rural community, but I imagine you can still get to people quickly in a rural community or suburban community. But in an urban community, you might have people in the same building just working from home who happens to be a trained medic. Somebody 2 floors down is having a heart attack. Well, you can get down there in 15 seconds.
Right. And in an urban community, the challenge is ambulances getting there. Yeah. So you have an ambulance and he has to go, even if he had to go 6 blocks, you could just be stopped by traffic with no way around. And so we innovated something called ambucycles, where we have like mopeds, basically with everything an ambulance has, except for a bed. And so they can go and start and stabilize someone by zipping right through traffic and start stabilizing until the ambulance can get there. So that's, critical.
Now, United Hatzalah serves everybody, anybody that could be hurt, right? You are checking IDs when you're providing care for folks?
Yeah, so we have volunteers from all parts of the society, all religions, ethnicities, men, women, whatever, and we help all people. And a lot of times people ask the question is, what's going on with the Arab volunteers since since October 7th? Yeah. So I'll say, and I think it's, one of the great things you see in United Hatzalah is in a dark time, you see a lot of light. So of our 700 volunteers, Arab volunteers, one person had to leave because of postings on their social media. We checked to make sure, these people are, just our due diligence.
Yeah.
One person was asked to be removed, and that's it, of the entire 700 Arab volunteers. I think Arabs, people don't know this, but Arabs within Israel, they're very happy. They're happy to have, opportunities in education. They're happy to have medical systems in place. And they're not, they get along. They're very happy to be part of the Israel community.
Talking with Brad Yellin. He's the West Coast Regional Director at United Hatzalah of Israel. If you got a question, give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text the Dan Kaplis studio text line at 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. We'll continue our conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Brad Yellin, West Coast Regional Director, United Hatzalah of Israel, is joining us, giving us an update on things happening in Israel. Now, United Hatzalah is not involved in the war. In fact, they transcend that. They care for people. They're an emergency response organization that cares for you whether you're having a heart attack or you've been a victim of the October 7th attack. These medical professionals rush in and provide care. It's really remarkable stuff. Brad, how have things changed for y'all since October 7th?
You know, the military threats throughout from all sides continue. And so we need to be prepared for missiles coming in and knocking out, say, communication systems. Like we're in touch with the home front. Some of the things the military prepares for as a first response organization, we also have to be prepared. These are the case scenarios that could happen. So, for example, we've had to invest, and we continue to invest in redundancy in communication systems, because if they knock out with precision, drone or whatever, satellites or cell towers or something like that. So we need multiple layers of communication. So that's a tremendous investment that we've having to make.
Probably not pagers. Probably not investing in pagers. All right. I would say it was just interesting because Gen Z had never heard of a pager until yesterday. And now, I'm sorry, stock in pagers is not good in the Middle East right now. Talk to us about some of the advances in technology you guys are working on.
Sure. And just one other thing that we've had to invest in, because we have multiple fronts. So our need for protection of all of our medics so they can respond wherever they are. There could be shrapnel, there could be terrorists and whatnot. So they all need protective vests and whatnot. And these are types of things you asked earlier about supporting the work that we do. If you go to israelrescue.org, these are some of the things that you can help us in preparing for the threats all around us, as well as our everyday work. We're responding to about 2,000 medical emergencies on a day-to-day basis throughout Israel, helping Jew, Christian, Druze, Arab, whoever needs help. So yeah, about technology, you were asking?
Yeah, well, and I was also going to point out people can give, sponsor a day of life-saving. You can do a monthly donation, e-cards. You can donate very specific things too. Help people with vests, as you mentioned, the material they need to save people. You can even donate enough to help them buy an ambulance. So lots of different things there. Yeah, go ahead.
So regarding technology, we have someone that is just amazing, our chief operating officer, operations officer. And he actually innovated Uber before Uber came on, used GPS to find the location and connect the dots where the incident is and where our medics are. And now he's been looking at using AI, and we're in beta looking at predictive technologies where we can use 18 years of data and figure out where that likely next emergency would be. So if we're roaming the streets, we can place our vehicles in a location that is closer to that, saving us, even if it saves us seconds or minutes sometimes.
They've got precogs.
Yeah,
over there.
Minority Report.
Right, Minority Report.
Wow, I was just thinking too. Oh my God.
So, yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I saw it live. He showed me when I was in Israel on the screen. Okay, here, this is a predictive. Oh, a block away from that. And it was like incredible. I was blown away by, there's so much bad stuff going on with that technology, except for maybe what we did with pagers today. To see something so great come out, saving lives using technology.
This is amazing. And the entire time during this conversation, I've been thinking about the idea of how wonderful it would be for us to implement it here in the States. And then I'm reminded about how many lawsuits we want to file. That's going to be a problem. But I think this is a wonderful solution. And you have created a safety net inside of the community that responds quicker and faster than what the official safety net has been able to do. And it's all about creating a community that comes together to take care of itself, which is the core of this message, which is absolutely remarkable. And I'm incredibly impressed by it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely a community response, people on the ground, neighbors answering the call. And we even tried to extend the training beyond the EMTs to do local training so people know how to do CPR and stop the bleed and things of that nature, Heimlich maneuver. So we have even a greater web of people that can respond to the calls.
So I was in Israel a little over a year ago, and it feels like an incredibly safe community. I mean, you have the defense that takes place, but you also have the safety net that's taking place. Learn more about United Hatzalah. Go to israelrescue.org, israelrescue.org. Brad Yellin, thanks so much for being in studio with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
If you missed any of the show, 710knus.com. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.